Hello, good morning. Welcome. This is Key Point on TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. Here on the Key Point, the key issues of the week that are concerned to you, the Ghanaian people, and we all have a stake in this democracy. As the directive principles of state policy in this 1992 Constitution and joins all of us, because this Constitution is written in our name as a people. The most secure democracy is that which is able to meet the basic needs of its people. How is this democracy meeting these specific basic needs? So everything we do every Saturday on this show is the end objective of enriching the democracy that we have as a people and as a country, to meet our basic needs. This morning, the suspended Chief Justice, Geto Tokono, has filed an injunction. In fact, she's taking matters into her own hands and her destiny, essentially, into her own hands, filing this interlocutory injunction application at the Supreme Court, seeking to restrain the committee set up by President John Dramani Mahama to investigate some petitions seeking her removal from office. Now, in the suit, which we have indeed seen copies of, filed May 21, 2025, that is what you find on the screen, the Chief Justice is requesting an interlocutory injunction to halt all proceedings of the committee pending the final determination of the case. According to this writ of summons that we have, the Chief Justice wants the Supreme Court to issue an order restraining this 5-member committee composed of Justice Gabriel Scott Pwamang and Samuel Kwame Debo Esiedu and Daniel Yao Demelovo, Major Dalugo and Professor James Safa Jassa from proceeding with any inquiry related to the petitions brought against her. Now, we will get into it as we go on this morning, and about 16 reliefs that she is seeking in this particular suit filed by her legal counsel. This time around, her legal counsel for this particular interlocutory injunction is the former Attorney General, Minister of Justice, Godfrey Adame, and that has also generated its own conversation as to whether that does the Chief Justice any good whatsoever, and especially the angle of the optics. Well, Godfrey Adame has hit back, indicating that there is no conversation about the optics, because really, this matter has become political already. We would have a conversation this morning. Also, a formal complaint has been lodged against this same person we're talking about. That's a former Attorney General, the Minister of Justice, Godfrey Adame, at the General Legal Counsel, alleging a number of things: professional misconduct in connection with the infamous ambulance trial. We're here, it's exactly a year ago that we were here on this same platform, because Richard Jagba had some tape recording of a conversation between him and the then Attorney General. It was exactly a year ago. Now, a year on, this same matter is the basis for a petition to the General Legal Counsel to look into the conduct of the former Attorney General, Godfrey Adame, for the brief breach of some professional code of conduct of the General Legal Counsel. We would get into it because we have a copy of this particular complaint filed by citizen Daniel Kwame Ofosuapia, invoking Section 18 of the Legal Profession Act 1960, Act 32, which allows any individual to report a lawyer for professional misconduct. Well, we would have a conversation this morning here on Key Point, and so stay with us. We have a number of lawyers join us. We'll get into this matter this morning here on Key Point. And something connected to it as well. For the most part of yesterday, is a gentleman who contested the NPP parliamentary elections in the Adentan constituency, Alfred Ocansey. He was picked up by some National Intelligence Bureau officials. He was released before the end of the day yesterday in connection with a petition that he submitted to the president related to, in his petition, he captured this as a meeting among some persons in this particular 5-member committee hearing the petitions against the Chief Justice. Well, this matter has snowballed into other issues we'll have a conversation on this morning. So stay with us here on Key Point. We are staying the steam on the city. Beyond the politics of it, essentially, what really do the numbers say? And in the end, it is the pass-through effect that we, the consumers, are looking for. So we'll have a conversation on it here on Key Point. Dr. Mahmoud Bamia says the NDC cannot point to any policy that has contributed to the appreciation of the city as we see it. John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, yesterday also says, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be one policy as he's being called upon to point to, but a matter of effective leadership. Well, we'll get into the issues this morning. As always, we're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. We're also on the Voice of London radio in the heart of the city of London, and also Voice of London TV as well in the heart of the city of London. So many of you who can connect with us in many ways. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. My name is Alfred Ocansey. My guest will join me right after this quick break. We'll have the conversation started right now. Stay with us.
the appreciation of the cedi that we have seen recently. I think one of the things that if you ask a simple question to the NDC to point out exactly what policy they have implemented that has resulted in the appreciation of the cedi, they cannot tell you one that has been implemented, not sort of talked about, but actually implemented. They cannot tell you one such policy. They only passed their budget in March. They've not even issued any contracts and paid for anything, pretty much. You know, so you cannot ascribe what is happening to the currency to a policy that they have implemented. There's no such policy that has been implemented that has had that impact yet. For me, we had anticipated the impact of gold in this economy. I talked about it when we got into dire straits in 2022. Bank of Ghana had bought $5 billion worth of gold. Some of the reasons why you are seeing an appreciation of the currency.
We have seen a response to the work that we've done, especially when it comes to the economy and hardship and all that. And somebody says, point to one policy that you have implemented to make the cedi appreciate. And I said, one policy. It's not about one policy. The answer is effective leadership. With effective leadership, we can turn this economy around and create a better life for our people. And that is what I'm committed to make sure that by the time we finish these 4 years, we'll set a standard in government that whichever party or whichever people come into governance cannot reverse the gains that we have made in restoring our people's confidence in our democracy. And so we'll continue to listen to the nuggets of wisdom that you give us, because it makes us better, it makes us stronger. It helps us to do.
Well, that's President John Dramani Mahama talking about, and in fact responding to what Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia said that's a few days ago in London. Well, we're getting to this matter of the cedi beyond the politics and what really is of meaning to you and I. That is the pass-through effect we are all waiting for to reflect in many ways. But then again, the matter of who takes credit for what and where we are now, and bear in mind the cedi continues to appreciate against major trading currencies. We've been looking at just the dollar, but if you expand the tentacles of that particular scope of analysis, you would see as well the direct impact of the appreciation of the cedi on the pound and then also the euro. And so we'll get an expanded analysis of the appreciation of the cedi later. So stay with us here on Key Point. But we'll start off the conversation with this petition in fact, it's a complaint to the General Legal Counsel against Godfrey Yeboah Dame, the former Attorney General and Minister of Justice. And this is one that, as I indicated, happened just about a year ago. A year ago, we were seated just at this same table on Key Point, talking about this leaked audio tape that Richard Jakpa had recorded, a conversation between himself and Godfrey Yeboah Dame, the Attorney General at the time, in this Republic versus Dr. Kessiel Atoforsen and Richard Jakpa and Ano as well in there. Now, according to the details of this particular complaint by this private citizen, a Ghanaian for that matter, it says there are concerns of a confirmed instance of professional misconduct by the former Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Godfrey Yeboah Dame, in the matter of the Republic versus Kessiel Atoforsen and Ano. It specifically references the suit number. And in that matter, a private audio recording capturing conversation between Godfrey Yeboah Dame and the third accused, Richard Jakpa, was submitted by a court Exhibit 94A1. You remember this was also quite topical during the proceedings in court on this particular case, but it was dealt with somewhat in the court of law, but was not dealt with in terms of the professional conduct or otherwise of the Attorney General. And it is the sole prerogative of General Legal Counsel to deal with that particular conduct of the Attorney General in this matter, beyond what happened in court just about a year ago when this matter became topical. Well, it continues that the contents of this recording reveal Godfred Dami attempting to influence the testimony of Jakpa in a manner that interferes with the judicial process, comprises, as it goes on, it says it compromises prosecutorial impartiality and undermines the constitutional right to a fair trial under Article 19(2) of the 1992 Constitution. The actions described amount to professional misconduct. That is what the petitioner is saying to the General Legal Counsel. And in his view, the actions amount to professional misconduct under the following provisions of the legal profession, that's Professional Conduct and Etiquette Rules, LI 2423. Rule 1, C, failure to act with honesty, integrity, and professionalism. Rule 8, 1, engaging in conduct involving deceit or misrepresentation. Rule 13, 1A and B, direct communication with the represented party on matters of representation. Rule 54, attempt to improperly influence a witness or the outcome of proceedings. Rule 61, conduct likely to discredit the legal profession. Rule 76(2)A, compromise of the administration of justice. Rule 89(9), any breach of the above constitutes professional misconduct. Essentially, so this is what the petitioner is saying that the General Legal Counsel should look into. All of this. But then again, we'll be finding out if indeed this is one that the General Legal Counsel should pay attention to. Joining me in the studio is Martin Pebo, is private legal practitioner and the convener of the Kumipeku Reloaded demonstration. And then also he was with the Operation Recover All Loot preparatory team who have wrapped up their work and submitted their report to the president and being actioned on by the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine. Martin Pebo, good morning. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Yes, morning. Morning, Mr. Ocansey. It's good to be here, yeah? Ghana's #1 talk show, right?
Indeed.
Good. So let me do the rituals as usual. We want to greet Chief Justice, ex-Chief Justice Sophia Kufu Yasantua. Yasantua is a heroine, right?
Who's now a member of the Council of State, right?
Absolutely. Where she is promised that she will give President Mahama a no-holds-barred kind of advice, full of candor, unalloyed, yes, not stomach direction advice. So, and that's what Ghana lacks a lot of the time. And people give advice based on their stomachs. Yeah, they won't want to tell the leader the real truth on the ground because sometimes they think it will upset the leader. And of course, some leaders in the past seem to enjoy the fanful kind of respect and news. They don't want the actual truth. But hopefully, JM is not on that trajectory. So we hope we'll get better results. Okay, right. Yeah, then we'll go to Asiadeyo Ajimambedu II, Domahini. Thank you, Domahini. More fire. Yeah, you know, Ghana needs more of your kind. And Togbe Afede, yes. You know, I should mention Togbe Afede to more often. You remember how he rejected the fees that were paid to him by the Council of State, right? Yes, because he felt that it was unjustified. Too many of us were so poor, people couldn't buy food, people didn't have much to eat, and yet they kept giving them in the Council of State allowances upon allowances. So he felt that no, life no balance, but he would try to balance it a bit, so he rejected the fees. And he spoke up on a number of occasions. Yep. And then we'll go to Kentucky, Teku through the second Gamanche, the indefatigable Gamanche, Kentucky Teku through the second. The man on the charges to get our money back from Cicely Adapa, right? And by the way, I'm sure we mentioned that the state is now investigating the second Cicely Adapa scandal, the one Godfred Dami covered up. Yeah, the Alpha Aqua this contract. Can you imagine? They were going to turn seawater, okay, into more drinkable water. But Cecilia Dapa never took that contract to Godfrey Dami and paid so much money. Yeah, over 37
So it's been
million.
investigated. The state has picked it up. You know, the Attorney General.
Yes. Yes, we did the story on it.
Investigating. Okay.
Yes,
So
except that the pain is that Godfrey Dami covered it up. You know, the time we kept baying and, you know, for the blood of Cecilia Dapa that these things are wrong, these things are wrong. Cecilia Dapa was involved in other illegal contracts, corruption raiding, and Godfrey Dami, covered it up. Now, when your people went to interview him, he says the next Attorney General can take it up. How? Godfrey Dami, when you know that we need all these cases to come out into the public, for the public to scrutinize and help you get justice.
Okay.
So thank you. And of course, the last one, the this government policy, we have to support it. We have to support it.
Well,
young people, let's get into farming. Let's get into farming.
The various policies introduced so far is going to be a conversation in the coming weeks because implementation has just begun. Some of them even are yet to take off. Yeah. So we cannot assess them without any, you know, specific track record, as it were, in terms of assessing the level of implementation so far. So it will have to take a while. Yeah. As you always say, it's early days yet.
Yes.
So, you know, let's see how things play out. Yeah. And Franklin Kujo is president of Imani Africa, and then also is a governance analyst. He's joining us on Zoom right now. Mr. Kujo, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning to your good self and my good brother, Oyapewu. I hope you are well.
Yes, I'm well, frankly. Thank you. Good. I hope you're well too.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Also with us in studio is Christian Mamhesi. He's a private legal practitioner. He is also specifically a constitutional lawyer and also lectures in many ways. Christian Mamhesi, good morning. Thank you for joining us, Counsel.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great. Also be joining us is Kweku Ansansari. He is a former rector of the Ghana School of Law. Yeah. And he's going to be joining us in a bit to have a conversation this morning. And also the acting CEO of the National Petroleum Authority, Godwin Eduji Tamaklo, would also be joining us as we have a conversation this morning. And as I just laid the foundation for this first engagement, and the General Legal Counsel has been petitioned. In fact, there's a complaint that has been sent to it specific to the said conduct of Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, the then Attorney General, in this Republic versus Dr. Kasiela Toforsen and also Richard Jakpa being the third accused in that particular ambulance case. And the recording of a conversation between Godfrey Yeboah-Dame and Richard Jakpa. Exactly a year ago, this was a big conversation because it was around the same time that this ambulance trial was being heard at the Supreme Court. Well, joining us, let's start off with you, Mr. Franklin Kujo, on this one. And because when this matter came up last year, just around the same time, you were very heavy on also the GLC getting into it because the court had dealt with the matter somewhat and cautioned the parties therein. But how does this petition strike you 1 year on from this private citizen, Ghanaian for that matter?
Well, first of all, like I said, as I've been saying, that we should never yield to what I think there's this biblical quotation. Should I say quotation? Well, actually, in Ezekiel chapter 18, I recall when we were studying Bible knowledge in the old GCE, for the old GCE O-level program. And I recall that we came to this particular passage, chapter in the Old Testament, the Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 18 essentially was talking about the Israelis, I think what the Jews were saying that, well, God is punishing them for the sins of their fathers. And I think God at some point suggested or said that, look, You cannot be saying that your fathers have eaten sour grapes and your teeth are set on edge, and that according to each man's failings, I yield or I dish out punishment. So for some reason, I started out with this particular quotation in the Bible because my good friend in quote, Godfrey Ocansey, must understand that in this instance is alone, and that the sins of the general NPP government, which obviously led us into the abyss, would not be part of this particular what I call very legitimate action that has been taken by whoever it is, because I'm saying this because you should not see that as part of the sort of persecution of the persecution in quotes of the old of the recently what do you call the government that left power. I think he has to answer for his own sins. At this stage, they are allegations, but of course, in my lexicon, those are not allegations at all. Those are direct acts of sabotaging the judiciary. Should I not judiciary, but the legal, discipline, everything about the legal process. This was like high treason. I mean, in some regard, you could be taken in for all kinds of, should I call it, infractions. So I'm saying this fundamentally to say that he should understand that this is personal responsibility that he needs to take for the actions that he took when he supposedly was pursuing the agenda on behalf of the state. By the way, he never. Most of the things Dr. Dame did, the high-profile political cases, the SAR case, he was a very vested interest person, to the point that I asked myself, is this guy a minister of justice or just a minister of persecution? Because the guy was just like a headhunt, just going for people, soft touch, going for them to please the president. And I asked myself, what is this guy doing? Even if it was political, somehow he should show some finesse. And that love dance relationship that he had with the judiciary at the time, unfortunately, is also manifested in some other aspects. I was listening to him a few days ago when he was saying good men should rise up because justice was being done, and that he's representing the Chief Justice. I have nothing against the Chief Justice, by the way. I think she was a better person when she was the supervising High Court judge, because I worked with her in fast-tracking commercial litigation and all of that, because I was in that committee, the Commercial Users Committee. Unfortunately, power has a way of tricking you. I think there are other things that maybe we'll go into that, but I think the fact that this gentleman was just headhunter, going for soft people, innocent people. Look at what he did to the Quaison guy,
Yeah.
Look at and you should sit in court and listen to the way he's throwing his weight about. I recall in the SAR case, I was devastated. But one of the reasons why I actually took aim against him was essentially because of the words he used against our lead counsel, Chachishika. It was so embarrassing. I was like, wow. Even if the bench was siding with you, you don't speak like that. Oh, well, you may be a smart man, but you must also believe in seniority. Anyway, back to the issue. So for me, I think that he should face the issues squarely. He should not add that to the sins of the many economic and the sins and probably thuggish acts of the previous government. I don't think he should be seen that at all. And nobody is persecuting him. In this instance, he's alone, and he has to answer for the act that he undertook. I mean, it's sort of really. I can't believe that the Minister of Justice would be coaching somebody to lie in court. That's treasonable in some way. I mean, if it were a military government, he would have been dead gone. So I think that as again, I would like to emphasize the point that I hope that he served properly at the legal counsel. The rules of justice must apply. They should not be treated like the way they've treated others in the past. But they should accord him the respect as a former Attorney General. However much I dislike his tenure, and then given that due respect and due regard to defend himself. And I think that's what I say on this particular matter.
And just to put it on record that this whole recording was admitted as evidence in court during this entire trial, but there was a question about the timing as well of this petition and so on, and the fundamental issue. And I want to find out from the lawyers who are here. As I indicated, Governor Juji Tamaklo has just joined us right now. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. And good morning to my senior brother, Franklin Kujo. It's been a while. Senior, how are you?
Well, I could be better, but I could be better if I saw you. So I'll pay you the question.
And then my learned senior here, Senior Martin Bebu, and my friend, Mom. I want to thank each one of you. And your good self, your able producers as well, and the good people of Ghana. I thank you so much.
Eyezu.
So, you know, my daughter, anytime I go to campaign, I come back. She'll meet me and say, Daddy, Eyezu.
That's all. That's all. That's all. Let it be.
There's a question which I want to just get a quick answer to, so that
you've done well. That's all.
Franklin Kojo can comment on it.
Right.
Now, without a petition, the General Legal Counsel will not take any action specific about the conduct of a member. They can only act based on when they are petitioned.
No.
So why did the GLC not act on this matter till now, that they have been petitioned?
So I'll give you instance so that Franklin can come in. I remember vividly that the Judicial Council itself, more or less, through the Judicial Secretary, summoned Dr. Ayeni. You remember?
Yeah.
Summoned Dr. Ayeni when he appeared before the CDD panel to have a conversation about democracy and how the courts system. And that was when he made the point about how the 2021 election petition was conducted. Thereafter, he had an invitation to appear before the General Legal Council. So
And this was without a petition. The GLC itself.
Yes, the Judicial Secretary was the one who did basically originated the process. So what it means is that they themselves can initiate the process. It must not always be a petition by somebody. But usually, because it's a rule that governs lawyers, the people who usually petition against us are clients. Somebody who you would have treated in a particular manner, and then A, B, C, D. More importantly, Sosu.
Yes.
The petition against Sosu came from the committee members themselves when they claimed that he had issued a writ, if you recall, and he had advertised it. And for that matter, he had engaged in touting. It was the committee members themselves who brought that matter before the General Legal Council. So it is not always the case that you need to have that kind of...
okay, so why... This question is predicated on that concern about the timing. So why did the General Legal Council not get into this matter a year ago until now that they've been petitioned?
The truth of the matter is that Godfred was untouchable. Regardless of him being Attorney General. Godfred, from 2021 to 2024, was simply untouchable.
But nobody is above the law, as you say, unless, of course, you're saying that the GLC
couldn't
get into it because you're describing us untouchable.
I am telling you, look, even at the Bar Council, I'll tell you this. The last Bar Conference, when the Bar Council met, and the question was whether or not Godfred should go to the Bar Conference in Kumasi. Yeah, the last conference was in Kumasi. Yes. And whether he can deliver a speech. The Bar Council itself, even at the GBA, were divided. In fact, some of the Bar Council members said, no, he needed to apologize as the leader of the bar. What happened relative to the Richard Jakpa matter had brought so much opprobrium, public ridicule, to the entire work of lawyers, and that it offends specific rules of engagement. Because at the time when he had engaged Richard Jakpa was engaged to lawyer Tadiosori, a represented person. The Attorney General or a prosecutor should not be dealing directly with them. So it's a clear breach of the rules of engagement. So some Bar Council members raised it that in view of this, they would not allow him to come and deliver a speech at the Bar Conference.
I see.
It was a split at the Bar Council where some senior, I don't want to mention their name, said no, you know, this one, they should, you know, find a way to work it out. I'm just telling you that within that period, Godfred was simply untouchable.
Okay, well, Mr. Kojo, hearing this, hearing this, and also that bit about the timing of this petition to the General Legal Counsel by Daniel Kwame of Fosuapia, because it came just a day after Godfred Boadame indeed was named or filed this writ of summons, the interlocutory injunction, on behalf of the suspended Chief Justice at the Supreme Court. Then the next day we got notice of this petition to the General Legal Counsel about his conduct a year ago. And now we're getting to know why the General Legal Counsel, according to the Jitama Law, did not step in, from his own reading, did not step in at the time. Because the understanding is that if they can take action or even invite a member without necessarily having to be petitioned, then we didn't have to wait for 1 year for this to happen, is it not?
Well, so maybe taking a cue from my good friend Eduji's explanation. Yes, so for me, again, the way the former AG behaved, the elements of how do you call it, power, the fact of the power relations at the time, even as he exercised that power, even in court, when I saw him in court, I couldn't imagine that a lesser body, in this case the GLC, could invite him to come and sit with them to discuss any matter relating to whatever he must have done. I didn't see that at all. The power relations would not allow that to happen. And again, this is him. As I say, he should separate himself from the fact that he was part of an administration, so he could get cover. He acted by himself directly. Everything he did, he must be taking responsibility now. So I think the power relations at the time obviously was clear. There could be nobody else that could rein him in. So it was quite clear. And for me, I think the point also made about the General Legal Counsel at the time, which was active, very extremely active when certain elements outside of their domain, in this case the people they disliked, had committed certain acts. The speed with which they were called to the bar was quite a novelty, really. And to think that, I mean, if they acted as though it was the OSP looking for corrupt people, because as I understand, the OSP's act suggests that if there are acts of corruption or perceived acts of corruption, you could actually be invited. So they didn't have to wait at all for this particular matter to be brought to them. But this was the highest level. This was the isn't he the president also of lawyers at any point in time, AG, right? Mm-hmm. So he has the think that he was committing these obvious infractions. I was surprised that they never invited him anyway. In any case, whoever took the petition is also just telling us that, well, crime in this case, because it's not been proven to be guilty yet, crime in this case has no expiry date. And this is high crime, really, extremely high crime, for which he must answer. And so he should not mask people. This is something about Attorney General has been invited here, they're going to court, there are people, political elements. Well, maybe they could do so, but that underscores the point I was making. And if he ever does that, and if he gets all these party people chasing after him, therein lies exactly the point I made. He was not a minister of justice for the country. He was a seclusive, precocious, minded gentleman who was just bent on doing the bidding of one person, and that's the president. And in this case, he's a lone man.
Well, it's what Christianism. I mean, these are matters that the General Legal Council will have to avert their minds to. I mean, and also establish whether there is merit in all of this in terms of the position by the petitioner that Godfrey Badame has breached all of these rules, Rule 1, Rule 8, Rule 13, and others that is in your rule book as lawyers with the General Legal Council. How does all of this strike you?
Yes, I mean, just as my learned senior mentioned, you see, at the time, the learned Attorney General, as he then was as he held that position, the Constitution of the General Legal Council puts the Attorney General as a member of the committee or the council that deals with disciplinary hearings. And it might be that at that particular time, situations did not avail for it to have a retribution against its own self. However, a situation as has presented itself does not mean that it cannot go into the merits of the matter to find whether or not the former Attorney General conducted himself rightly or not. I mean, if you look at the petition and what it is trying to hinge on, or it hinges on failure to act with honesty, integrity, and professionalism, I mean, it is not far-fetched of what ensued I think about a year of what happened. And it is definitely for the Attorney General, the former Attorney General, to run by his response. You definitely have a response to sit well with, a response that the committee would see whether or not it sits well for further process to carry out from there.
I see. So it obviously, as expected, it's not one that he's going to, as it were, sit for it to pass. He's going to put up a fight, as expected.
Oh yes, definitely. I'd mentioned that on other platforms. Any other natural justice requires that when one brings up a matter against you, you'll be given the opportunity to respond. And definitely, once the petition has been filed, General Legal Counsel will bring it to his attention, not just as it's in the public, but it will be drawn to him that there's a petition against him, and he has this number of days to respond. And thereafter, a time would be indicated to both parties for a proper hearing of the matter, and that would be it. So, I mean, both parties would go in with their lawyers, with or without their lawyers, to have the matter heard, and a determination will be made out of it, whether or not indeed these rules infringements really exist, other than what is perceived out there or what might have happened in the course of the case that he handled while he occupied the hallowed position of Attorney General. It must also be said that the fact that he occupied that position never meant that he's beyond the rules of law, because Act 32 and the LI governs legal profession in the country, and nobody is above it. Nobody can act beyond the confines of what is defined for us in terms of our LI and rules of etiquette. So definitely, if it is a situation that by way of the hearings, the council concludes that indeed there should be a sanction against him, then that would pass under the rules. If it is not, that also would hold. If it happens against him and he believes that it doesn't sit well with him, then he will further take it to court to battle it out. So this is how it will pan out, basically.
I see. And whether or not this ethical breach of witness tampering is one that also should get the attention of the General Legal Counsel. We'll see how the coming days will be. But I recall a year ago, for your position on this matter, you had indicated consistently that at the time he should have resigned, but he stayed on. And in fact, this year, February this year, he addressed a press conference and gave some detail as to why he did what he did, and essentially making the case that that conversation, which was recorded by Richard Jakpa, was the only conversation he had with him during the trial. And essentially, that advice to Jakpa to obtain a medical report was not born out of ill intent, but rather a genuine suggestion in light of Jakpa's health condition and his own tight schedule due to an international case he was handling at the time. Does that suffice?
At all, at all. It doesn't cut master. It doesn't. It was just a ruse. You know, as a society, we were very clear at the time that, look, the Attorney General had breached the rules of ethics, all right? And his statements in the tape just sought to destroy the justice system. Yeah, that much. It was clear. And let's be very clear about this. Look, it doesn't even matter the outcome of the General Legal Council, okay, investigations to this matter, right? The fact remains that as citizens, we all heard what Godfred Dame stated in that tape. And those statements are unethical. Yes, the General Legal Council can give a different opinion on it. They can say, look, they don't find it unethical. That doesn't mean that as citizens, we cannot continue to say that is unethical. We are also allowed to pass judgment. We heard it. What we heard is not anything that should be allowed in a thriving democracy such as ours. So rest assured, I mean, you don't have to say, oh, this is the kind of case that we wait for the outcome of the General Legal Council's decision. No, this one, we also have a right to have an opinion, right? And what we heard, anybody who hears it, it was very clear. You heard Franklin say it. Godfred Dame was coaching Jakpa, suborning him, telling Jakpa, no, don't put it that way. Do this, do that. Godfred Dame told Jakpa, go and get a fake medical certificate. This one, is it the General Legal Council that's now going to tell us that, yes, it's a fake medical certificate that Godfred Dame requested?
He said it wasn't born out of ill intent. And that, indeed, when he went, he actually obtained the adjournment because he was not well. So the fact of him asking him to obtain a medical certificate because he was not well was nothing but factual.
No.
That's his position. That's sometime in February this year.
What did Godfred... maybe play the tape again. Jakpa resisted. Jakpa said no. Jakpa said no.
I'm only telling you what Godfred Dame said.
Spin. I'm sure you know the spin doctors. Godfred Dame would spin the matter, right?
Why do you think so?
Oh, because I have heard the tape and the rest of our fellow citizens have also heard the tape. It's clear. Very, very clear that it was Godfred Dame who suggested to Jakpa that he should go get the tape, notwithstanding the hesitations and resistance by Jakpa. Please, listen, we don't need to spend much time on it. It's clear. And yes, so we must, right, of course, continue to hold him accountable in the court of public opinion whilst we wait for the General Legal Council to also conduct its investigations. Because, I mean, this thing had embarrassed us. It had brought the criminal justice system so low that, you have a prosecutor go on record to do such things, and yet the system was unresponsive. They wouldn't take him on. We sat here, made a lot of noise, and then it wasn't that. Look, that kind of conduct from a lot of Supreme Court decisions, it should have even started. We made that point that it was for the trial judge to refer the matter to the General Legal Council. Yes, you will find a number of cases. Yes, you will find
Republic versus ex-party General Legal Council and Sumwa.
Yeah, there are other ones.
It indicates that the court being an arm of it as part of the judiciary has the legal mandate to refer matters that it comes to a conclusion that the lawyers in the matter, either the lawyer or the lawyers in the matter, have misconducted themselves, and that by that the matter could be referred to General Legal Council. So a judge sitting in the matter could decide on whether or not you have acted rightly or not in terms of ethics-wise, and refer you to General Legal Counsel.
But that did not happen.
Yes, other cases, the Woyome case. In the Woyome case, the Supreme Court referred some lawyers to the General Legal Counsel, right? Well, then there is the Kofi Atanle case. Look, the cases are many. It's a tried principle. It's even one that you don't need to cite any authority. You don't need to mention. Lawyers all understand it, that, hey...
You don't joke with the judge.
Once the conduct is found to appear to breach the ethics, the judge should simply pass it on to the General Legal Counsel. It's like what Eduji said earlier on. Alfred Ocansey was, untouchable. Yeah, he's the president's darling, because he would do a lot of dirty stuff for the president, right? So that was it. So he had the ear of the president. People around knew that, hey, don't touch Godfrey Dame. If you touch Godfrey Dame, it was tantamount to touching Akufo-Addo. And, you know, as I said earlier on, a lot of the time you find public officers take decisions based on their stomachs. And I'm like, no, why would you do that? That's why, for me, I went to law school. Earlier on, as I told you, my first degree is in business. By level 300, it was clear to me that, no, I would not make a typical employee do this, and I just do it. Of course, I obey rules as a lawyer, but certain things, when a thing is not right, I basically was looking for a situation where if I feel this is not right, I will push it to the end. And so you are likely to get fired every day. So go to a profession where you don't need somebody to employ you. Once, you understand the law, you can operate on your own, of course, subject to the rules. So that is why we should stop. It was so clear that this matter had to go to the General Legal Counsel. Whilst we were, in the previous administration, but Charlie, people looked the other way because they didn't want to offend Akufo-Addo. I see why once again, the good people of Ghana saw through it. I said, okay, now we will show you where power lies. And then we gave them a very humiliating defeat, right? So that is it. And you even remember that, look, even in that very case, the trial judge advised Godfrey Dame to stay away from the case. After the tape was admitted to evidence, the trial judge said she was advising Godfrey Dame to stay away from the case. Godfrey Dame ignored her and kept coming to the court and kept participating in the trial. Can you imagine? You ask Eduji or ask Ma'am, when the trial judge tells you, cancel this case, please don't come here again. Let your colleagues in your law firm or the Attorney General's chambers conduct the case. Come on, unless you are not a practitioner. Yeah. A judge, it's not even a subtle cue, not one that maybe you say the language is not clear. This one, when you read the ruling, it was very clear. The judge was very clear that Godfrey Dame should stay away. Godfrey Dame ignored her. Okay. And that should tell you the kind of influence was.
I saw that you intervened when the issue came by saying that, Godfrey said the medical report was to satisfy a particular end. That's not the case.
Well,
I was involved in that matter with my senior Dr. Bassett Look, it was a very simple thing. Godfrey was traveling, and for fear that Richard Jakpa will come and testify and cross-examined, he wanted Jakpa to frame up the story in a particular way that implicates Atuforsen. And so if you listen to the audio recording, the whole idea for the medical report was to delay the trial, to allow him to travel and come back and do the cross-examination and elicit particular answers from Richard Jakpa. That is
he had a tight schedule. He had to deal with that.
So that is how witness tampering operates. Look, I've always maintained that in good conscience, Godfrey Adame, if he's a Catholic, should get a Roman father and possibly do a confession and ask for forgiveness of sin.
What do you mean?
You see, you don't know the conspiracy that Godfrey built to put Atuforsen in jail at all costs. It's a painful episode, and that should never happen again. Look, I don't care whether you are NDC or MPP. Look, per our rules of engagement, we are supposed to provide representation to anybody, provided it does not offend the rules. That is our calling. So it matters not.
Okay.
But where an attorney general, and that is why we say that prosecution is a public service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is different from persecution. If it is only prosecution, and the prosecutor's code of conduct is that don't do anything to secure conviction at all costs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you are providing a public service. Follow the ethical rules, present your case, and let the judge decide what you want. Recently, my Lord Justice Akabuafo,
Okay.
in a recent Court of Appeal decision, where a young man was convicted, spent some years in prison, only for the matter to come to the Court of Appeal, and it turned out that, look, there was no evidence linking the guy to the crime. But this guy had been convicted and spent. So my Lord Akabuafo took time to elaborate what prosecutors and investigators should do so that they don't put innocent people in prison. Because sometimes by the time the appeal is heard, the person would have lost everything he's worked for in life. We don't want that kind of scenario or situation again. And that is why I strongly believe, it doesn't matter who you, the Attorney General, is. If you are not following the rules, because you see, I always say this, and anytime I met police officers in court, you know what I usually tell them? I say, look, in my almost 12 years of practice, I've represented a lot of police officers. So you, a police officer, tomorrow, God forbid, you can be the subject matter of criminal investigation.
Yeah.
It had happened. I've represented police officers in court. You understand? So I always tell them that, look, deal with fellow countrymen with a certain human face, so that tomorrow, if the same rules apply to you, you will not be found wanted. The same thing applies to prosecutors. Let us all be fair in our dealings with fellow countrymen. That's all that I say. As for the rest of the petition, I think I've seen Richard Jakba. He appears not to be happy with the petition to the General Legal Council.
Why is that?
Because on his Facebook page, I saw him raise serious issues that he believes that he has his own plan for this matter, and that he believes that the petitioner is quote unquote becoming a busybody.
Oh, but this one is a civil one. It's without prejudice, even civil. It's without prejudice to any criminal action.
No, he's not even talking about. I don't know what his plans are, but if you look at his Facebook comment, you can see that he's not pleased with whoever it is that is before the General Legal Council, because it appears he himself wants to be the one to petition as far as this matter
So this
is
one
concerned.
is more like preempting his own plans.
And I think he has some reasonable suspicion that no, it may be a sinister, so that if the matter goes either way, maybe Godfred may end up, escaping from the what is required by law, because he definitely appears not to be happy with this whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so Ocansey, so finally,
quickly.
yes, so you see, it's based on these very damning statements, right? A serious indictment on the justice system, that you find the decision by Chief Justice Tokonu to engage Godfred Dame not appropriate. I mean, that one we have to be very clear.
Why is that?
A man, we've just recounted all the things, so I don't need to repeat. A man who has said all these things, a man who seeks to undermine the justice system, then a suspended Chief Justice goes to engage him. I mean, what kind of country is this?
But it's well within
Dame
her
the
right
only
to do
lawyer
that.
in this country.
It's well within her right to do
Oh,
that.
no,
She
it's not
decided-
every right.
She decided that this is the lawyer she wants.
It's not every right that you exercise. It's not every right that you exercise. Sometimes you look at the public interest and then you forgo certain rights. It's not every right. What's the thing? Those of the Bible. I think the last time I quoted the matter of 1 Corinthians 6, right? That area onwards. where they say, the Bible says, everything is permissible. Everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial.
That's morality. That's morality.
Okay, today you can say that's morality. Why go to morality. Find out tomorrow? Yes, even granted. Why are the churches full? Because people ascribe to a certain religious code. So you haven't shut down my argument when you say it's morality. A society without morals, what would it be?
You know, when it comes to law, I mean, a legal right, it is a legal right that she exercised. And I mean, nothing can clog that right of hers.
Look, even to become a judge, it's stated that you are talking about morality. It's stated that moral turpitude. So moral turpitude. You see, it's not everything that's only about crime specific.
But to be appointed going for a lawyer is an exercise of discretion. Whether you want to go with quarters A or quarters B, irrespective of the public opinion.
But the matter of optics is key, is it not? I mean, you cannot also discount that. I mean, based on everything that has been said right now, which you also acknowledge that the General Legal Counsel has reason or should be also looking into the said conduct of Godfrey Ebuadame. You said that in your earlier submission. Based on that,
yes.
And then now he is a lawyer to none other than the suspended Chief Justice. It doesn't concern you based on the optical analysis of things, from the optics.
Yes, like I said, it is a discretion, and it still remains her choice. Now, if at a point in time she decides to terminate the legal relationship that she has with him, so be it. But to cover it up or to conjecture in the way of the optics alone will not sit well, because aside she being a learned justice, she has all the faculties to reason through why she would choose a particular person, irrespective of what a certain or let me say, irrespective of what a number of persons think of her choice. You could go for, just as a private person, you could decide to go for a particular lawyer, and one would say, but why have you gone in for this lawyer? And I mean, in my almost decade of a practice, I have seen persons who have had such rhetorics, but the question is, it's choice. Someone would want to go for a lawyer who probably drives a certain vehicle. Someone would want to go for a lawyer who sits in a trotro. At the end of the day, the person is looking at the quality of service or a certain relationship that has existed over the years. So there are myriad of decisions that goes through the mind of an individual in selecting a particular lawyer, and that cannot be discounted. It is her legitimate right to go in for anybody, including Godfrey Dami, irrespective of the optics and the analysis.
So, Godfrey Dami himself has been responding to this argument of he representing Getu Tokono, her leadership.
Yes.
And he says that position of the optics is baseless and completely unfounded, because his involvement goes beyond Justice Tokono as an individual, and also the fact that it's about challenging the unconstitutional manner in which he says this petition process has been handled. That's what he said. I just want to put it on.
Before my senior Martin comes in, let's look at these two scenarios. So Godfred is lawyer for Vincent Asifwa. So they first brought an application. In Relief 1, they say that Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, was not notified prior to the President sending or consulting the Council of State. That's the claim. Now, the claim of not being notified requires personal knowledge. So once that issue came up, some of us said, on what basis did Vincent Assefuah get this privileged information that the president has not consulted Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice. So then it created an impression of some communication between the plaintiff and Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice. Not long, there was a letter now from the Chief Justice herself asking the president to furnish her a copy of the letter so she can, as it were, put in a response. So already right from the beginning, the impression has already been created by way of conduct that there's some kind of communication between lawyers for Vincent Assefuah himself, and now suspended Chief Justice. Now that matter goes in and it fails. Only for Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, now suspended, to formally come before the court. Now gets represented by the same lawyer for Vincent Assefuah. And like you pointed out, it's about the optics. Me, where I sit here, I will not say that food should be taken from the mouth of a colleague lawyer. No, this is what we do for living. And so now that he's back into private practice, he needs to make a living. I will not say who should be his client or who should not. But you see, we are working out the optics. Look, the head of the judiciary, right, gets represented by the immediate Attorney General. At the time when there have been serious questions about, the public, the verdict is out there in the public. That, you have not acted between the two political parties. You have taken side. And for that matter, like Caesar's wife, you must live above reproach. You understand? Caesar's wife must not be somebody whose name is associated with anything below the, like people can gossip about or run rumor about Caesar's wife. No. So when the story came that Cleopatra had something to do with Mark Antony, it was as good as you are God. As the wife of Caesar. That is how, when you get elevated to a certain position, you cannot do what ADG can do. Me, I don't want to be a judge. So I am in my corner. You understand? Now, those who say they want to be a judge, there's a certain elevated conversation about them. So once you become Caesar's wife, there is a certain benchmark around you based on your conduct. I would have wished, and this is possibly wishful thinking, there are many, many senior lawyers in this country, right? Many, many senior lawyers. Now, if you have a situation where serious allegations of this nature, the minority in parliament have entered, the MPP itself had actually had a demonstration relative to this. Then not only that, you have a situation where the immediate Attorney General is your lawyer. Have you found out who is representing her before the committee? Have you found out?
Yeah, some people raised it, but we didn't get answers.
No, assuming you have my learned senior Ayiko too, being her lawyer before the committee, what would be your view?
Well, it'll be different.
Do you get it? So I think strategically, I don't have the capacity to advise. No, I don't have the capacity at all.
Yes, but you have an opinion.
But you see, there's a reason why you read that Bible, the verse. The account, if you put in account, you are doing now who kwine, and yet are doing now so the fata. Do you get it? You are doing now who kwine, but and yet you now the fata. There's a reason for that profound statement in the good book. You know, Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, is a lay preacher at ICGC. I want to believe that going forward, maybe some of these things will guide how this thing is approached. It's for good reason. You see, it's not an ordinary person. If you look at our governance structure, after the president, the vice, Mr. Speaker, she comes next.
Article 57.
She comes next.
Yeah, 57.
It's not, look, the events playing out, it's not a joke.
Well, for the respond to the disposition of others, that look, this matter has already been politicized, even though it's a purely constitutional matter. Who? We have allowed the politics of things to also get in there.
By who?
So I mean, the suspended Chief Justice going in for programming is really not outside of the politics of things playing out now in Alfred, this case.
Let me tell you, I know the high hopes President John Mahama had in her leadership, the Chief Justice becoming Chief Justice. Right. I know.
Okay.
In fact, prior to she becoming the Chief Justice, President Mahama actually said, when Eni Ebua was just about, that he is very confident that the new Chief Justice who will come after Eni Ebua will restore.
The one they were taken out of context.
No, because that statement was made when Eni Ebua was just about exiting.
Yes.
And she was coming in.
And they were saying that meant that JM said...
In fact, it was about... No.
Yes, so, but, they took it out of context.
It was deliberately done. They don't provide when it happened. So, JM was very specific. That he is so confident that with her ladyship Justice Gertrude Tokonu becoming the Chief Justice, should restore, because the Afrobarometer reports and others created an impression that there was something untoward happening with the judiciary. And so JM, then opposition leader, said, look, he is confident that with her ladyship, the Chief Justice, becoming the Chief Justice, a lot will happen. Let me also state here, even at the political committee of the party, after FECNEC, one of the highest political committee of my party, the NDC, right? When her nomination came, President Mahama indicated to the minority that there shouldn't be any opposition.
Wow.
President Mahama indicated
at the political committee level that nobody should oppose her becoming Chief Justice. So if you note, unlike the Gawu, Kumsin and Co., whose appointment came to the entire floor for a vote to be taken on them. In the case of a leadership, the NDC minority in parliament, because it was just a minority of one, and they could have unsettled everything. All they needed was to just get one person in the MPP at that time to flip, and that should have lost whatever. But you notice that when it came to her appointment, from the committee level, it was unanimous. Her approval was by bipartisan consensus. Then on the floor, it was unanimously approved. That was the confidence President Mahama personally had in this Chief Justice. That is the level of confidence he had. Why? The grounds in the petition, unless President Mahama is a soothsayer or by way of clairvoyance, how was he going to see that the Chief Justice will conduct herself in that manner? I mean, how? It is just not possible that President Mahama could see into the future. Assuming that they claim that, oh, she paid a per diem or so and so for the husband, or as I speak, I've decided I don't want to bother myself with the grounds. Assuming these are the real grounds for which reason these decisions are being taken, guess what? How could President Mahama see into the future to say that her ladyship, the Chief Justice, was going to conduct herself in a particular manner? How was that going to be possible, Alfred? And so, right from the onset, there couldn't have been any issue of politicization until the MPP, busybody, decided to drag themselves into this impeachment conversation. With the press conferences, not only that, they even went as far as organizing a demonstration. Didn't they do it?
Yeah.
Look, when I listened to Godfrey Adame on one of the radio stations, makes the point that the lawyers for the petitioners are known NDC lawyers. So, wow. Wow. Yes, you can say, and without any equivocation, that Malene Senior, Mr. Chachuchigata, is a proud member of my party and he associates with that. But how in God's name do you say Tadio Sori is an NDC member? Look, I'll tell you this. When I became, in 2008, one of the campaign promises President Mills gave was to find the killers of Issa Mobila, the Northern Regional CPP chairman.
Yes.
You saw the circumstance under which he died. The soldiers, his legs up, tied him up until he died. So it was one of the NDC campaign message in 2008. Well, when we came to power in 2009, President Mills then decided, may his soul rest in peace, to prosecute the people, the perpetrators of that murder. Guess who their lawyer for the accused person was? Mr. Tadio Sori.
Yeah.
Okay.
The NDC lawyer is the one representing Mr. Sori, and he made the point that even in Ghana at 50, at that time, my Lord Justice Kulendi was the lawyer for the Ghana at 50 people. He said he assisted them.
Yes.
And many other matters that he's done, including representing Obi Amwa.
That's it.
Guess what? Because his people master was Ambrose Derry, the two of them did Malam Issa's case. Malam Issa's case. Yeah, so he is just a lawyer who, once you approach him for legal representation, he is willing and able to do. Like you pointed out.
Some will even tell you, if you know Sori's family, they'll tell that he's more of MPP in terms of family, the family structure.
This man, what's the name? My own brother, Oliver. The things Oliver says about JM or the NDC government, sometimes I wish I can call him and say, my brother Godwin, what's happening? But that's a free-minded Ghanaian. So to suggest that the petitioners are being represented by NDC lawyers is mischievous and deliberate to poison the atmosphere. Now that it has come out that you are the lawyer for the CJ, now suspended, what's your response to that? Then you are all over the place. That, if it's so, then we are guilty by association. It cannot be. At least, let us handle these matters in good conscience. I'm surprised that Godfrey says good men should rise up. Today, if good men rise up today, you will lose his license.
Yes.
On what basis?
But the tape is clear. And this one, they call it no further inquiry. This type of tape.
One of the,
when you hear it,
it's not conclusive.
It's called no further inquiry. Ask the people who learned this law in America. They'll tell you this one is called no further inquiry. It's too clear. The main thing is that
if today, with respect, good men rise up, as Godfrey is calling good men to rise up, you lose his license.
Yes. Absolutely.
One of the reliefs.
But I had a question, so I was going to answer. So I'll be very brief. Yeah, you pose the question to me and then. Yes.
Because on.
So my answer, you said Alfred Ocansey said that.
No, it says that argument of the optics is baseless, essentially.
Yes.
And without merit.
So the word baseless.
And he references what Edujit talked about. That you have some of the petitioners also being represented by persons known affiliates of the NDC. So really, what's the point? And then also the fact that this matter has been politicized already. So he getting into it doesn't hurt the optics as it's at play already.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So even before I go on to the substantive question, please let's note the issue of when Ma'am was saying is just a moral matter. Please, Article 128, Clause 4 says that A person shall not be qualified for appointment as a justice of the Supreme Court unless he is of high moral character and proving integrity, blah, blah, blah. So the point I want citizens to note is that we've not divorced morality from the law. The two are interwoven, inextricably interwoven.
So when you hear, a judge say that what is legally right cannot be necessarily morally right, and vice versa. It is not.
He has totally misconstrued me.
Okay.
No, because before we move on, just a minute.
Quickly.
The point is that qualification to the bench, moral turpitude is part.
Okay.
Now, in the exercise of one's rights, it has nothing to do with morality. It has everything to do with the legal rights exercisable. And when that person is exercising his legal rights, what does morality come in?
So okay, let's leave it. Me, I just wanted to show you that in the law.
Viewers watching us, morality in jurisprudence by Professor Austin, it has been clear. Jurisprudence has engaged and exhausted the issues about law and morality. And it has worked from John Austin, John Bentham, Jeremy Bentham, all the way to Kelson. So issues about morality, I'm very well placed in it and understand how it is interwoven and divorced in the law. But when it comes to exercise of legal rights, in getting a lawyer, it has nothing to do with morality. Because when one is going on to ascending to the bench, moral turpitude is one, because as a judge or ascending to that high office, it must be ascertained whether or not you qualify for that position. So your moral issues will be part of the conversation, but not what I am saying. It's more like putting...
Okay, can I go? I think you've made a point over. I just wanted to viewers to know that, look, in our law, and it's not only in Ghana, many places across the world, there is that confluence. Yes, that point is made. As to whether you think it doesn't apply here, that's your opinion. It's fine. Okay. Yes, so now, Governor Dami, the word baseless. Yes, that's what I want to address in a minute. I mean, in view of all the facts we've referred to so far, okay, let me recount briefly. The trial judge telling Alfred Dami, stay away from this trial. Alfred Dami ignoring her. The things Alfred Dami has said in the tape, right? Number 3, Alfred Dami adding ACP Agojo to the treason trial when he himself said there was no evidence against him. Alfred Dami covering up the second Cecilia Dapa scandal. I'm not surprised he would say that is baseless. The claims are baseless, meaning that he himself, his judgment has always been suspect. Let's repeat what I'm saying. He's saying that the charges against him are baseless. You understand? I'm saying the word.
He says that argument of
ethics. That's what I'm saying. Charge. Yes, I'm calling it's called the argument of the optics. It's a charge. People are charging him that the optics look bad. And Alfred Dami is telling us that that argument that the optics are bad for him is baseless. And I'm also making the argument that for a man of his track record, and I've named all the things, right? When he says this is baseless, I'm not surprised, because from his own track record, all the things we said, his judgment has always been suspect.
There's one of the demands, the reliefs that the Chief Justice is asking for in this particular interlocutory injunction, and that's going to be the next. We'll deal with it. We'll deal with the details. In fact, there are about 16 of them, but there are 3 of them that we'll zero in. And because I'm mindful of the time for one of our guests, one particular one. Let's start from the second one. The second one we're going to put on the screen, right? So I said a declaration that upon a true and proper interpretation of the same articles, the right of a Chief Justice to a public hearing and all the incidents of a fair hearing may only be excluded in the interest of public morality, public safety, or public order. So
again, that's as in many places in our constitution, morality you will find.
But this one, this third one, that a declaration that under the same article, a Chief Justice who is called upon to participate in a hearing conducted by a committee constituted under Article 1466 to inquire into the merits of a petition seeking the removal from office of the Chief Justice can waive the privilege of in-camera proceedings. Is it her right to do so? Council, quickly.
Okay.
Is it one that you support?
Oh yeah. Let's separate. Straight answer is that her waiving of her right would not automatically result in a public hearing. That's a straight answer, because when you look at the phraseology in Article 146, I think it's clause 8, it doesn't appear that
8.
Yeah, 1468. But did I mention a different?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it doesn't appear that it's meant to protect her alone. No, let's read it. This is what it says. It says, all proceedings under this article shall be held in camera, and the justice or chairman against whom the petition is made is entitled to be heard in his defense by himself or by a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so from the way it's been phrased, it's not clear that it's only to protect the accused in a way. When I say accused, so that we can, effective communication. It's not a criminal trial, but for a lot of people.
You are using it in the loose sense.
Yeah, in the loose sense, so that we can communicate effectively. We don't gain anything by using big words when we can. Yes. So I'll use accused freely here. Yes, I'll use accused freely because
this bit.
If in certain jurisdictions, so you see that even in a criminal case, they don't use the word accused. They use the word defendant, whether it's a criminal case or a civil case, right? All right. So looking at it, you can see, and I've expressed an opinion on that. I also agree that the proceedings should be telecast live.
The hearing of this 5-member committee.
Yes.
And the petition.
Yes.
You support the call that it should be telecast live.
Even
though the constitution is explicit that it should be in camera.
Yes. So right now what we are saddled with is the language of the constitution. And I don't have the last word on it. So my opinion that it should be telecast live, please, it's not, what do you call it, the meaning of the constitutional provision. It's my personal opinion. As I've told you, my reading of it, it doesn't appear that it's only meant to protect the accused person in this case, but rather it appears it's for the whole of the system. There is still, though reduced, myth around the justice system, judges, the wigs, the gowns, and generally, our society is still evolving, so we accord a lot of, extra high value to the justice system and all that. So you can see that on matters concerning judges, we want to be sure that things don't come out in a manner as would make the public lose confidence in the justice system, etc. So you see that based on this history, etc., it doesn't appear that it's only meant to protect the person who has been accused, but it's also meant to protect and especially maintain the confidence that the society has in the judiciary. And it's not only the judiciary. You see that this provision 146 also applies to a number of the independent constitutional bodies. I think immediately I can remember the electoral commissioner. Yes, we are going to remove the electoral commissioner.
The auditor general. All of those.
Yes.
People,
so you see that.
Yes. All of them are subject to this.
Very good. You say it. So, and the independent constitutional bodies, there are at least about 7 of them in the constitution, right? So you see that this provision is meant, we're looking at those days, 1992, the way our society was, we're not that much enlightened. Even today, yeah, we are still far behind, right? But at least we've made substantial progress. So in matters like that, even if you want to test how sometimes people can get angry, you remember, okay, let me not cite the example, we've moved on. But generally, you can see that this constitution was written more than 30 years ago. The society at the time was what this constitution reflected. But now we as a people, we've moved on. Yes, we've moved on. The train has left. So the constitution now has to play catch up. That much is very clear. This constitution itself has been very clear that it's no longer fit for purpose. The design, everything is no longer fit for purpose. So thank God President Mahama has set up the committee. For 8 years, Akufo-Addo would have none of it. That's why JM would always stand tall above Akufo-Addo. I'm like, come on, a lawyer, 8 years, tweak this constitution for us. No. He wanted all the power, all the trappings of power. Yes. So moving on, yes, my heart is with the call for a public broadcast, public telecast of the proceedings. But when you look at the text of the Constitution, it's difficult. So maybe somebody should go to the Supreme Court, though it's difficult, you never know. You never know. Because, so I was saying something extra, that how about us looking for more innovative ways to make the argument? So number one, can Musa Dankwa conduct a poll on this matter again, so that we are looking for other arguments? If we conduct a poll and you see that over 60% of the population say we should do it live, that will add to the calls for the system to do something.
And you balance it out with that concern that you yourself underscored, that this in-camera provision was not born out of oblivion. There was a reason why.
Yes.
To, for instance, protect the identity and also the sanctity of the entire process.
Excellent. Yes.
So if that's the case, even if the public is making that demand, will the public demand surpass the intent?
It appears so.
Of the provisions of the Constitution.
Yes, it appears
also
so.
The framers of the Constitution.
It appears so. That was the argument I made, that as a society we've moved ahead of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Yes, the transparency, the calls for transparency have grown louder than this constitutional provision. The society has clearly moved on. So where you have society move, and that's one other area where you see issues of morality coming in. Sometimes society advances ahead of the laws, and so the law have to be amended to be able to catch up. This is one clear case where you see society has moved on. That no, listen, and that's how come you see the petitions leaked. The petitions leaked. People have read. We will not discuss here, but people have read and have made judgment. So we should stop playing the ostrich. Rather, want to see how cross-examination can demolish the things we've read in the petitions. You see it. So that's how come there is a higher call to see the proceedings, because you're like, we've read on paper X, Y, Z. Of course, we will not mention the details. So, what kind of cross-examination is going to undo these things that we have seen in black and white? So let's do that thing. So Musa Dankwa should do a poll on this question. Number 3, we can also look at maybe demonstrations in favor of a public broadcast. Yeah, when the society makes a lot of agitations, asking for something, because justice emanates from the people in Article 125. So if people say that, look, our sense of justice today is that this thing must be made public, and after all, even the Chief Justice has also waded in, it will add. So we are adding all the arguments. Let's read briefly. It says that Article 125, Clause 1, it says, justice emanates from the people and shall be administered in the name of the Republic by the judiciary, which shall be independent and subject only to this Constitution. Then you see 1252 talks about this participation of citizens in the justice system. So you see the assessor system and then the jury system. So the argument I'm making is that to the extent that it appears the majority of the people think that the justice in this case requires that it should be publicly broadcast, I think we should look at it well. Then, you see, this one is called shaking the kaleidoscope. Shake it, keep shaking. You don't know what you get.
On this, you see, and because this call is to advance, good governance, is it not? But I recall speaking to Koko Asasari makes the point that Professor Kofi Kumado once said that democracy is not synonymous to constitutionalism. The two are different.
Yes.
So you cannot essentially be making this argument in the interest of advancing good governance and democracy when the Constitution is very clear in its language about the process in Article 146.
Have you seen the oath that Supreme Court judges take? The Constitution is here. Go to the oath of office.
True faith and allegiance, blah, blah, blah.
They say,
yes, it's here.
True faith and allegiance to the laws of this country. They don't even say democratic principles.
Yeah, it's here. True faith and allegiance.
It says, quote, for judicial oath, having been appointed the justice of so and so or high court, I bear true faith and allegiance to the Republic of Ghana as by law established. I would uphold the sovereignty and integrity of the Republic, and I will truly and faithfully perform the functions of my office without fear or favor, affection or ill will, blah, blah. Uphold, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the laws of Ghana. That is a oath. Not even democratic principle. It's about constitutionalism. Yeah. Nothing more, nothing. And the reason is this. If you read, there are two different cases by the Supreme Court on this subject matter. Frank Ajay-Chum and Derry. So in Frank Ajay-Chum, when the respected lawyer Bright Akwete brought the petition for the removal of Chief Justice Akwa, right? Aspects of the petition leaked front page of newspapers. That the impeachment was already with President Kufuor. The petition was with President Kufuor and was in the process of kicking the Council of State in. Then quickly Frank Ajay-Chum came before the court and said, the constitutional provision that allows for in-camera proceedings is mandatory. It's not optional. It does not give a person an election. And to the extent that it is mandatory, and the fact that portions of the petition for the removal of Chief Justice Akwa have leaked into the media, it offends Article 1, 4, 6, 7, and 8. And to the extent that it offends, the entire process becomes unconstitutional. That is how come the removal of Chief Justice Akwa was aborted. Right? That's how come. Then in the Derry case, Anas Arimiyao Anas had already indicated the premiering of the videos. So then he also went to court and said, the basis on which I have been hauled under Article 146 is this video of Anas Arimiyao Anas. And to the extent that the man has done the premiering, it's as good as publishing the Chief Justice Akwa's petition on the front pages of newspapers. So that constitutional provision that calls for, and if you read the provision itself, it says, you highlight that provision, Article 146.
Article 146 and
146, 7 and 8.
Yes.
It's a very instructive provision. Very instructive provision. Because you see, if you go to that aspect of the provision, what it says is that all
proceedings shall.
All proceedings. It does not even give an exception. That, this part of it, we can have it outside or this. It says all proceedings shall be held in camera. In camera is the Latin word for hidden, secret.
Okay. So how would you respond to the argument that in the Supreme Court...
I just want to draw. I just want to draw the distinction. So when Justice Derry then raised that issue, the Supreme Court, speaking through his Lordship Justice Bennett, said, look, there's a policy reason for the in-camera proceedings. And that policy rationale is that it may well happen that a Superior Court judge or anybody who is a subject of Article 146 proceedings may come out clean. But you know how we lawyers, we do cross-examination. Like we say, cross-examination is at large.
Yes.
You may end up going to ask some questions that will raise issues here and there. You can't control a lawyer when he's doing cross-examination, actually. So once you get to the point where it becomes very clear that some things may come out that may destroy a person who goes through such a proceeding, we are not wiser than the framers of the Constitution. No. Well, for a minute, let us not assume that when the people went to the polls and said, this is the Constitution that we want, excuse my language, there were people without foresight. No. That provision is a safeguard to protect the integrity of the process itself, the individuals, and their dignity.
Well, Matiko says the society has moved on.
No, I beg.
Maybe the intent behind that then may not necessarily be responding to the exigencies of the time. So because of the demand for transparency and good governance. Transparency,
good governance itself has a limit. You can't be transparent in everything, and he's here. the day this man becomes the president of the Republic of Ghana, he will have his cabinet. Maybe the next time we'll advocate for cabinet meeting at Makola.
Oh, so you're using the exception to rubbish the argument.
Oh no, I'm pleading with you, senior. Because even in democratic societies, thrones and nations are preserved by secrets. It's a common belief. Globally, thrones and nations are preserved by secrets. It's not everything you do. And that is why if the president wants to have his cabinet, he doesn't do it in the public. The Constitution and its framers would have said so. Now, what we all need to understand, with the greatest respect, is this claim, interestingly enough, in Relief 1, and I've seen it, is that if you can project Relief 1.
Let's go to the first relief for the
Relief
Chief
1.
Justice
I will be glad this.
Relief 1 is a declaration that upon a true and proper interpretation of Articles 17.1 and 2, 19.3 and 14, 1467, 1467 and 8, 2811 and 2951 of the Constitution, a Chief Justice has the right to
now this is where it gets possibly provocative.
A public hearing in proceedings before a committee appointed by the President.
That view provokes the 1992 Constitution.
Why?
Because it introduces an interesting word. The Chief Justice has the right. Where from that right?
She references the...
Listen, no, she says a Chief Justice had the right to a public hearing. Meanwhile, Article 1467 and 8 says all proceedings, all, no exception. So you read constitutional text as a whole. But where the Constitution itself provides a mechanism for addressing an issue, the judges usually put it back to us. It's a council. Where from these rights? Is this right a right recognized under a law? Which law? If it's not a right recognized under a law, where from this novelty of now suggesting that in Article 146 proceedings, a Chief Justice has a right to public hearing? That's provocative. Completely provocative. Because the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, says that all the proceedings, without exception, should be held in camera. So a suggestion that in the specific case of a Chief Justice is one to suggest discrimination. That the Chief Justice is not equal among the other superior court judges or persons who are subject to Article 146, and for that matter, an exception should be created for the Chief Justice or whoever occupies that.
Argument has been made that she's the one who's accused, and she's asking for a public hearing so everybody gets to see what's going on, because already this matter is being tried in the court of public opinion, so we must also know what's going on.
This is my simple response to that suggestion. If there is no right, there is no waiver. So, for instance, if you look at Article 18.2, it says that a person is entitled to privacy, your communication and property. So police officers cannot just walk into your house. No, they will come with a warrant.
Indeed.
That provides an exception to that. Or you yourself can tell them, come into the house. That's a waiver. So the police comes to you and say, we are investigating this matter. We want your phone because we think you have used it, or your laptop because we believe that you've used it in the commission of the crime. So we need it. When you give the phone to them, then raises the further question of access. The further question of access. You can also say, I have nothing to hide. And so I am giving you my password. Yes. Or they'll go to court for a search warrant to go into the mobile phone. That's a right. You can waive it. And that's why you can say that I have nothing to hide. And for that matter, I am doing. But there is no right.
So in this case, the relief one, there's no right to be waived.
To be waived. You must first have a right that you can waive. And I'll give you a classic example. I'm really shocked that Godfred is the one putting up this view. In the Ato Forsen matter, right? There was a time that he needed to travel also. Then we said, oh, the trial can proceed.
Okay.
In fact, before that, the second accused, Dr. Sylvester Nimana, he was so sick, very sick, that he was coming to court in a wheelchair. So we suggested to the court that, is it possible that he should be excused? Once he's on bail, he should be excused from court attendance so that the proceedings can go on. Incidentally, the Attorney General, Godfred Ocansey, then raised the issue that Article 19, the Fair Trial Rules, say the trial should happen in the presence of the accused person. And so to the extent that that would amount to, quote-unquote, a waiver of that provision, it offends the Constitution. And that is how come Nimina was coming to court every other day unless he goes for his dialysis. Until the AG himself now decided to do what? A nolle prosequia in respect of that matter. So I think we should all come to the conclusion that in the wisdom of the framers of the 1992 Constitution, if they had envisaged that the Chief Justice under Article 146 should be treated differently, they would have provided that exception and not use the word all. The use of the word all means that right from the time the president received the petition to the time when the whole matter ends, all other things must be done in camera. You could have said, oh, when it comes to the hearing itself, an exception should be created so that the person can waive it. It is not a very attractive constitutional proposition to make because of the policy rationale to safeguard the integrity and the dignity of the process itself.
And the persons.
And the persons involved.
I'm bringing Franklin Kojo. Franklin Kojo, please stand by on this one and then I'll seek your thoughts. But you see, there's a lot of things at play which may be unprecedented.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the first time we're having a Chief Justice so suspended, being a plaintiff in a case before the Supreme Court where she used to empanel, justices until the time she was suspended. It's unprecedented within our legal jurisprudence. So you can understand how things are playing out now. But then again, that position
can I read something? Let me just read something let me read something quickly. Quickly, 30 seconds.
Quickly.
You know, the Ghana Bar Association took Aban. You remember the Aban case?
Yeah, Aban case.
This is what His Lordship Justice Pegan said. And let me just conclude from here. It is clear from the above that under our Constitution 1992, a Chief Justice or a Justice of the Superior Court of Judicature or a Chairman of the Regional Tribunal can only be removed from office by the President, acting on the recommendations of a committee appointed by the President or the Chief Justice, as the case may be, to inquire into a petition sent to the President alleging misbehavior or incompetence against the one concerned, or his inability to perform his functions because of the infirmity. Now, this is what is instructive. It is important to note that Article 1468 of the Constitution, 1992, provides that the proceedings of the committee appointed to deal with said petition shall be held in camera. It is mandatory, said that proceedings be held in private and not in public or open court. as has unfortunately been done in this case. The reason for this important provision is obvious. It is to preserve, protect, safeguard the authority, dignity, and independence of the judiciary. It will be a sad day for this country if this court were to grant the request of the Plaintiff Association and start removing our judges in open court, contrary to the provisions in this. And the Chief Justice and the former Attorney General are the one urging this view. Look at Justice Pegan. He said it will be a sad day in the history of this country if the Plaintiff Association, incidentally it was the Ghana Bar Association, wanting to remove Alban.
Yes, but that was in the 90s.
1992.
You know, in the US,
I mean,
when you want to remove,
constitution.
yes, when you want to remove a judge in the US, they do it in Congress, publicly, their parliament, they play it.
They have a different constitution. But they don't have in-camera proceedings.
Yes, exactly.
We are dealing with the constitution. We have a unique constitution. So don't bring the American proposition.
But they are stronger than us.
I am saying that when the Ghana Bar Association sued the Attorney General in respect of Chief Justice Alban, the Supreme Court, speaking through His Lordship Justice Pegan, and let me conclude. He said, it will be a sad day for this country if this court were to grant the request of the Plaintiff Association and start removing our judges in open courts, contrary to the provisions made in the Constitution for the purpose. So, Senior, I know your views are usually very wild. And I think that my senior needs constitutional restraint.
I want the nation to move quickly. Thank you. Yes, there's one position that advances good governance, and that's what Lawyer Martin Kpebu is espousing about the Constitution now responding to the current times and the demands of citizens. Because maybe at the time this constitution was put together, the framers had something in mind. That's why I indicate that this provision certainly couldn't have been put there in oblivion. And Lawyer Dujiti Chamaklo clearly espouses the reasoning behind this in-camera provision in the constitution, the protection of the sanctity of the process and the people involved. And like Christian Mamhesi, as against this demand by the Chief Justice that, yes, this is the provision of the Constitution clearly stated, but I have a right to waive, and because I want people to get to see on TV how this entire process plays out, so that in the interest of transparency, that everybody would see it, because already this matter is being tried in the court of public opinion. Does that suffice?
Yes, I mean, I start from the case of Ghana Bar Association versus Attorney General. And indeed, the reason, as my learned senior mentioned, is right, that the whole reasoning, the jurisprudence behind that is to preserve the dignity and the judicial independence of the judiciary. And that point has more than necessarily been overflowed. But that is the basic point. Now, I also agree with my learned senior Kpebu on the fact that the Constitution definitely ought to respond in the changing times. Because if you look at other constitutionally decided cases, it speaks to the fact that where we have Justice Adade saying that the interpretation of the Constitution, just as my senior said, must reflect the changing times. And the two prongs that impede interpretation I always mention, which was also espoused by Dr. Justice Dateban, that we have the objective test and then the subjective test. The objective test in construction of a constitution deals with the intention of the framers of the constitution. And then the subjective test deals with the changing times, the values, the legal antecedents, historical values, and all of that. So that in construing the Constitution or a particular provision, the two needs to merge, so that when the conclusion is arrived at, and we have a number of conclusions, say we have 2 or 3, if any of them or one of them or 2 of them will render the interpretation incorrigible, absurd, then the best conclusive interpretation is what the court will adopt in order to reflect the changing time of the Constitution, because the Constitution is a living organism that must not be construed in the literalist sense. And when that is done, it will leave the Constitution hanging in time, but it ought not happen. Now, if you look at the reason they have cited these articles, if you look at 295, 281, they are looking at commission of inquiry and goes into the interpretation side to see what a commission of inquiry deals with under the Constitution, to include committee, and such that appearance before the committee means that it could be held in public if the situation is that it is not going to cause public disharmony and all of that. Right. So it is also not far-fetched. And just as I started off in my submission, I mentioned that the Constitution ought to be construed in a particular way, which we have come to agree by law, though, that we do purposive interpretation. So Article 1468 will not be construed alone. Definitely, when the Lord Justices are having consideration in whether or not to seek to the waiver as her leadership is seeking, they will definitely refer to Justice Began's caution, or as is contained in the decision, and why we should be wary of having in camera or not. But just as I mentioned, the purpose of the in camera, purpose of the in camera is to ensure that the judiciary is protected. And before I conclude, I must also say that, I mean, save that lawyers run what do you call it, cross-examination at large. The lawyer would be guarded by Section 69 of the Evidence Act, because even though you can ask a lot of questions and it's at large, the court holds it as a duty to control trial, to control the kind of questions. If those questions, irrelevance, ambiguity, and needless accumulation of evidence which would prolong trial or the hearing. So, yes, cross-examination is at large, but it is not necessarily at large that you can. So, again, the court would have the opportunity to construe this particular provision purposively for us to know whether or not indeed, as we have this situation, it will set as a precedent for other cases to follow in that direction.
But you see, just a quick one. You see, you notice that when you say cross-examination is at large, for instance, you see lawyers, and Martin is very good with that. The lawyer would deliberately ask a question. Then the judge will intervene, or the other lawyer will say, my lord, we object to it. Now, by the time the judge will say, objection sustained, question should be, you have already put it out in the passion. Do you get it? I get you. Right. So, you see, you would have asked, you, on this day, so and so, you have done this. Highly prejudicial. Then the lawyer on the other side will say, my lord, we have an objection to this question. It offends every applicable rule. Before the judge will give a ruling and say, assuming it's public, when you have withdrawn the question, the harm would have been done already. To the people out there in public, they will say, and you're no creating a judgment person.
Yes, that's all.
And you're no creating judgment person or answer question.
Yes.
You would have injured the person.
You remember Jim Mensah said,
You is okay. So you see, so it's a skill set we lawyers have.
Reposition your camera for me. Yes. Yes. Mr. Franklin, can you hear me? Mr. Kujo?
I hear you.
Great. If you could put your camera on for me, yes, that would be good. I was just looking for that. Yes. Okay. We would rectify that connection if you could put the camera on for me. Yes, that was... you just conclude the point about the conduct of lawyers.
Yes, so that's the point I'm making, that for we lawyers, we have different skill sets for cross-examination and putting out. And you see, sometimes if you want to even color the mind of a judge, you ask the question, you know an objection will be raised, then you withdraw tactically. But the mind of the judge is already colored.
Yes.
Okay.
You've already poisoned the mind of the judge. And so you know this, that as lawyers, these are all skills we deploy.
Yes.
So in order to protect, and you see, look, my Lord Justice Pegan and co, with the greatest respect, saw into time.
Yeah.
And we're looking at the situation, like he said, look, let's be careful that we don't have a situation where our judges are removed. And we turn it into an episode in a series. No, this is a serious matter.
Well,
what if the judge herself wants this out there?
No, it is not about her. Today it's about
the
her.
office.
It's about the office.
Okay.
It should not be whimsical.
So if the Americans
It will be interesting for us to know what the Supreme Court will
in their Congress, why
about
not
this particular
us?
Because you have argued from the good governance perspective, there's a matter of what the law says, and we're borrowing her ladyship's position. The law is the law, but then again, how does that also respond?
And incidentally, she is a test
how does that respond to
The law is the law.
exigencies of the
She
time,
is a
the demands
test
of the time? Mr. Kujo, your thoughts on this particular one about whether or not this hearing should be public, as the Chief Justice is demanding in her relief, so that she's going to waive she's going to waive a right that is, according to Edudzi Tamaklo, that right in itself does not exist because it is not a right so-called enshrined in 146. But then again, Lamatic People says, in the interest of good governance and then also in the advancement of democracy, the demands of the citizens today, that particular demand of this 5-member committee's hearings being made public should be considered. What's your take on this?
Well, ordinarily, I have nothing against that particular report because, clearly speaking, I mean, we all know the antecedent to some of these, should I call them demands, right? People believe that sometimes when certain things are done in the dark, then there are challenges and people would misconstrue what exactly should have been justice delivered. So I don't see anything wrong with it at all. Obviously, coming from the not too recent past of what was termed unanimous 7 or unanimous FC, when people thought that whatever they were hearing, well, there was a foregone conclusion. I think she should be granted that right. I don't see anything wrong at all. And whatever it is, eventually we will all get to know. You know, I seriously think it's a non-issue for me, really.
But Edudzi Tamaklo talks specifically about the reasoning behind that particular provision. Certainly couldn't have been without basis. And it is for the protection of and the sanctity of the process, and then also the people as well in there, the petitioners specifically in this particular process.
Well, at this stage, she's decided that this is the way she wants it conducted. And she's waived it. She probably wants everything to be out there in the open. So maybe we should just grant her that. I mean, I really don't know the basis for rejecting her, even though it's in the Constitution. For me, I think it's a good ask, and I don't see any problem with it at all.
Well, that is if there's a right.
The problem with my senior brother Franklin is that, you see, when you come from civil society position, and like good governance, democratic society, you want as many things to be as open as you can. But there's a challenge. You see, a judge goes through this process, comes out, and the allegations have been found out to be, quote unquote, unfounded. She goes back to sit in court. It will affect the judge.
If it's
so, that's
the reasoning. The
challenge with this. But one way or the other, frankly, just 30 seconds. There had even been a suggestion that for Supreme Court judges and the appointment to Supreme Court, the vetting itself should be taking it should take place in camera. And the reason is that, you see, these people, they dispense justice. First of all, the only reason why you, or can say, if I have a problem with you, we'll take it to a judge to help us deal with it, is that we have confidence in him. Immediately that public confidence in the judge is completely undermined or eroded. It is the entire administration of justice that will be affected. And so in the wisdom of the framers of the Constitution, of all the things, look, even crime, when a crime is alleged against you, you do it in public. You understand? Because criminal trials happen in public. However, look at why the framers of the Constitution, when it came to this one, they said, look, this one, let's do it in camera. They were very wise people.
So, Mr. Let me hear Frank. Yes, you are making a point obviously in response to Tamako's position about this, and the fact that it is about what the process is and not so much about what she is requesting for. Mr. Kujo.
Well, as I said, I would yield at this stage because whatever the process is, at the end of the day, we need to get to the truth anyway, whether the allegations were proven right or wrong. And I'm wondering, even if this was done in camera and one way or the other, she's exonerated, well, she comes back to sit, and probably it's the same effect that Loyaduji thinks might affect morale. It's the same outcome anyway. It wouldn't be the case. So I don't know. I mean, that's the way I process it. So whether it is done publicly or it is still in camera, at the end of the day, one way or the other, we'll get to know whether she gets exonerated or, unless, of course, we are suggesting that, well, look, there's no way. I mean, maybe the merits of her case are actually sound, and that she wants everybody to get to know. Otherwise, I don't see the challenge. I don't see the challenge that Loyaduji actually raises, because one way or the other, if she's exonerated, she'll come back. If she's not exonerated, we still get to know it. So I don't know where. Frankly,
the gravity of the impact, the gravity of the impact, if it is made public, as against, and if it's made public and then she's exonerated or implicated, as against it being done in camera, even the and the cross-examination itself. Those are two. Yeah, but even, the impact will be different in these two instances, isn't it?
I understand, but the point is, one way or the other, there'll be a verdict. If she comes out exonerated with an in-camera proceeding, wouldn't the same effect that Loyaduji is wondering or is worried about, wouldn't it really happen? That we would say that, okay, so does that in-camera, then maybe there's a fair process because she got exonerated, and she's coming back to sit as because that's what LG suggested, right? The morale, what I call it, degrading, and all of that within her colleagues.
Do we usually
I don't know.
Divorce proceedings in public?
Even in the UK, they started doing it in public.
No, but that's the UK. We have specialized law.
Mr. Kujo, end this point.
What's the UK now, Martin?
Yes.
What's the UK?
Gentlemen.
So I'm a bit, I don't know. I seriously think that
you can't waive that, senior.
I hope that we are able to clear this particular patch in our judicial history. Frankly, I am not opposed to the request at all.
Okay.
Thank you, Franklin. So my last
conclude on the point.
The unconstitutional nature of Franklin.
I want to, Franklin, you and I, we are the same boat, and thankfully for us, even in the UK, divorce proceedings, now they've started allowing journalists in.
We have to deport you to the UK.
That's where we are striving to be. So we are all striving to make more progress in governance, in transparency, right? So divorce proceedings that they were hiding in chambers, over there, they are now allowing journalists in to report. So that tells you that society is constantly moving forward. The law has to catch up. The law, and let's remember the American example.
The law is the law.
No, Charlie, it's hard.
No, make the point. And the point.
Yeah, so if the Americans are doing it in their Congress, in public, why should we shroud ours in secrecy? You see, so that remember that when such a matter comes up, don't forget, the person is not bound to go through the trial. Let's call it the committee investigations. It's also a trial, sort of, so I can use the words interchangeably. So if you find that, look, the details are very sordid, you will not pass a public scrutiny, then you resign. Resignation to is an option.
No, at this point, you have crossed the Rubicon. You can't resign.
Oh, can you compel her to come?
You can't resign at this point.
No, she can.
No.
She can. You can't compel her.
No, so Sina, what happened is that, you see, there are consequences for resignation.
Yes.
And consequences when this action is determined.
Yes.
So I remember in court, a high court judge who was going through Article 146, realizing the consequence of it, right, quickly tendered in his resignation.
Yes.
C.J. Wood refused.
Yes.
You know why? If the judge resigns, she's entitled to all the benefits or what have you. If he goes through the process and the finding is made and the person is removed, pursuant to 146, it forfeits. So there are legal consequences.
So let me show you.
So
can you compel somebody to come to court?
No, hold on. The Supreme Court, because it's a judge who is on retirement, and I don't want to mention his name. In that particular High Court judge case, the court said, look, it's a clever way to overreach the work of the committee. And for that matter, rejected the resignation.
Yes, when you reject,
in
it's not the same as physically compelling the person. You can't go and hold somebody that come before the committee. It's not possible.
No, but nobody has suggested.
So what you do?
She can decide that.
And so she can resign.
Decide that.
Then your remedy is to say that.
Sina, if you read Article 146, 7, and 8, what does it say? It says that, look, the person, and he uses the Chief Justice or Chairman of the tribunal, has the right to appear before the committee. Now, he uses the word what? Right. At that point, she can decide to waive it.
Because there's a right.
Yes. What the committee is entitled to do by law is to offer her the opportunity to be heard. That opportunity to be heard is a right to fair hearing. That can be waived. Two things.
Okay. Well,
so let me land this way. So no, you are not. You see. Let's not mix them up. Listen, what you are saying, yes, that the consequences can be dire. That you don't allow the person to resign to take advantage of the retirement benefits, etc. Right? So what you do is that you make a law specific that in the event that the person resigns, refuses to participate, you forfeit. But you cannot say because if the person resigns, he can participate. You will force. Look, our law is very clear. You can't compel. I'm coming. You can't compel somebody to work.
That does not.
You can't. That's not what this Constitution
beyond legal
says.
submission.
Yes, you can't compel anybody to work. Exactly. So if the person says, "I don't intend to work anymore. I'm going."
So you see 8.
Yes.
It says all proceedings under this shall be held in camera.
Yes.
The justice or chairman against whom the petition is entitled
to
be heard.
Yes.
Now she can waive that entitlement and say, look, I don't need it. What is going on? I won't even come.
So that's it.
All the committee needs to put on record that she was offered the opportunity to be heard. Nobody has said that.
So she can resign and go.
No, resignation is different.
You can do so. You see, let's make this very clear.
Resignation is different.
Which part of the Constitution is it written that she can't resign? Where?
How?
She can. So if it's not expressly prohibited, she can. What you are saying is that
matter had received judicial distance.
No, it's not possible. That one you are saying is different. You see, let's make this different. Let me land this way. What will happen is that if the person refuses to come, you go ahead with the evidence you have and come to it. Yeah, so it goes against her, but you can't compel her to participate.
No, but that's not resignation.
No, so I'm saying when the person resigns and refuses to come,
at this point she can resign.
Oh, she can resign. If she resigns today, there's no law, there's no part of this constitution that prohibits the resignation.
So you mean when she resigns now, what will be the consequence of this matter?
Yeah, so she resigns, but if the hearing goes on and there's evidence against her, she doesn't participate, yeah, she'll lose the entitlement. That's it.
But that's not resignation. You are resigning from the office.
Yes. But because you've also refused to go and participate in the hearings, you lose, and the hearings evidence was adduced against you, lose the entitlement.
No, reverse it was.
No,
the sequence
resignation comes from the fact that personal autonomy. We have gone past
slavery. What is she resigning from?
Personal autonomy.
What is she resigning from?
She's resigned from the office of Chief Justice. Has she been removed?
No. So once she resigns,
so I get Senior's point. Senior's point wants to do with the fact that, you know, that anchor or that conclusion, which in the hypothetical sense, let's say where the committee comes to a conclusion that the learned Chief Justice has been removed, will not be hanged on her.
That's all.
Because she took a step ahead of them.
But that would be overreaching the work of the committee.
She's allowed.
But then
She's allowed. Yeah.
It's a number of your messages. But let's reconnect Franklin Kujo on the next matter, because this is also interlinked somewhat. This one here says, good morning, and thank you for the excellent submissions by your guests this morning. I was of the view in support of the suspended Chief Justice's demand, but hearing Edudzi Tamaklo espouse the legal positioning and then also rulings in this particular demand by her in the said relief, I now have clarity, he says, and thank you. This one also says, until the Constitution is reviewed, it should stand. If this is granted, then she can even change the Constitution to stop her removal. The Constitution should stand, you say. Thank you. That's on the comments. When she resigns, what will happen? Does that mean the country will not pay her benefits? We need to know. I think this is coming from one with no name, but one from Eric says, Lawyer Edudzi Tamaklo said if the Chief Justice resigns, she will go with all her benefits. Can you tell us a bit more detail of exactly what that means? Thank you. No, just a quick one, if you have to respond to that. Lawyer Edudzi Tamaklo, quickly. He's referencing a statement you made about the Chief Justice resigning if she will go with all her benefits if she resigns.
Yes. So you see, I think the Supreme Court in the case of Justice Frank Kwejo Amwa versus Attorney General. And this is Relief 1 in that matter. It was decided 29th October 2015. Quote, a declaration that upon a true and proper interpretation of Article 145 and 3, as well as 127, 58 of the 1992 Constitution. Now, in this case, the judge resigned and the Chief Justice rejected it. So, listen, the purported rejection, by the President, the purported rejection by the President of Ghana of the plaintiff's notice of voluntary retirement, quote unquote, as a justice of the Superior Court is unconstitutional, unlawful, and is of no legal effect. 2. A declaration that upon the true and proper interpretation of Article 145(1) and 3, Article 127, the notice issued by the plaintiff to the President informing the President of the plaintiff's voluntary retirement from the judicial service with effect from March 2011 was valid, and the President was obliged to accept it. Listen to the Supreme Court by His Lordship Justice Eniebua. The court makes it clear that once the impeachment process had commenced, you cannot resign. Clear, the Supreme Court.
No.
So I think that we should be clear in our mind. Because in this particular case, you see, this is what happened. After the receipt of Chief Justice's letter referred to in the preceding paragraph, the President responded on 8th March 2011 to the plaintiff request to go on voluntary retirement. The gist of his states, quote, I regret to inform you that His Excellency the President is unable to grant your request of voluntary retirement due to the notice of impeachment by conduct. This is what he sought to challenge.
Right.
And the court said, look, the President was right in rejecting the notice of voluntary retirement. When you resign, what have you done?
So you say that you no longer participate in the functions of the office at all.
That is
that one. Nobody can compare.
The Supreme Court has dealt with
this one here from
Ebenezer
Havo says, good morning. Good discussion for God and country. Says the suspended Chief Justice ought to understand that in a situation like this, transparency facilitates a fair process, avoids bias and undue influence. Waiving a hearing in camera could affect public understanding of the process, you say. Thank you very much. This one also here says, lawyer Martin Pebu has built a reputation as a staunch constitutionalist. When the issue of asset declaration arose, he firmly sided with the Constitution over the law that the President relied on to justify extending the process. It's therefore surprising to see him now opposing something that is clearly mandated by the very Constitution he has always defended. He says the Constitution needs your support at all times. Martin, this one.
Noted.
I think it's just a difference.
Alfred,
Yes.
I beg you, just to put matters in proper perspective, let me read the policy rationale as decided by Justice Eniegwa. This is what he says. We are of the view that the requirement of notification to the President to enable him as the appointing authority to take steps to ensure that the judge seeking to resign does not have any pending disciplinary proceedings against him before going on voluntary retirement. This provision, in our view, accords not only with the principle, but common sense as well. The only question which arises from the said provision is whether the President, as have been complained to in these proceedings by the plaintiff, can refuse to give accession to the decision by the Superior Court judge to resign. Quote, we think that as the date the plaintiff notified the President of his intention to resign, there was disciplinary proceedings pending against him. The President was not bound to accept same. We are equally of the opinion that had the President accepted the letter of resignation, if effect would be to undermine the carefully drafted disciplinary proceedings in relation to Superior Court judges under the Constitution. Accordingly, we are unable to yield to the plaintiff's argument that the refusal was wrong, unquote.
Okay.
So
now, this one here also says,
beyond,
right, it says, I support the call by lawyer Martin Pebu for this to be considered. For at least us all to get to see how this matter progresses. The Constitution must respond to the demands of the people if power emanates from us, as the Constitution says. So, thank you. But quite a number of them. This one also, in fact, this leads us to another relief that the leadership, the Chief Justice, is demanding in this 16-point relief in that interlocutory injunction application. And this is the 10th and 11th one. And we're going to put that on the screen right now because that is also linked to one other reference that Alfred Kumi, the one-time NPP parliamentary, or he aspired to represent the NPP in the Adenta constituency, also referenced in the petition to the President to dissolve this 5-member committee hearing the petitions against the Chief Justice. And this is it. It says a declaration that under Article 23, 1466 and 7 and 296A and B of the Constitution, the second defendant, in this particular case, Justice Gabriel Scott Palmer, is not qualified to be a chairman or member of the committee set up by the President to inquire into the petition against the Chief Justice as suspended on account of having adjudicated and giving various rulings in favor of one of the petitioners, Daniel Ofori, in actions filed in the Supreme Court. That is the 10th relief that the suspended Chief Justice is asking of the Supreme Court to consider in this interlocutory injunction. If you look at the details of the petition by Alfred Ocansey to the President to dissolve this 5-member committee, he cites this as well, and we're going to put that on the screen. You see, Alfred Ocansey talks about a certain meeting, and I would have you explain what is in this video, because you are one of the persons who put it out first.
Yeah.
First on your social media. But this is what Alfred Ocansey, in that petition to the President to dissolve this 5-member committee looking into the petitions for the removal of the Chief Justice, says. He has Justice Gabriel Poamang there, Justice S.K. Adbuesiru, and Justice Yoni Kulendi and Tadio Sori. They are not members of this 5-member committee. Justice Yoni Kulendi was a member of the panel that delivered the ruling, I think, on this particular case of the injunction application in the Vincent Assefua's 3-2 majority decision. He was part of the justices that delivered the ruling on this case in the majority. The learned Tadio Sori is a lawyer for one of the petitioners in this case. And Alfred Ocansey cites all these persons with the 2 others. That's the chair of this 5-member committee and the member of this committee as well. And he says that in the evening of 15th May 2025, between 7:30 and 8:30 p.m., Justice Gabriel Poamang and Samuel Kwame Adebo-Esiedu, together with Justice Yoni Kulendi of the Supreme Court, and we'll flip it, of Ghana, were seen having dinner with the counsel for one of the petitioners before the committee. Mr. Tadio Sori at the Santoku restaurant located at Villaggio Airport residential area, Accra. The strange, that's what he described it in the petition, the strange meeting of the 4 persons who are keenly interested in and have played and indeed continue to play critical roles initiated in the processes for the removal of the Chief Justice excited the curiosity of some persons in the restaurant. Indeed, they were overheard discussing matters related to the petition. That's according to this petitioner, that based on what he knows, these persons were overheard discussing matters related to the petition for the removal of the Chief Justice as suspended. Now, respectfully, the record of the presence of the 4 Justices Poamang, Kulendi, Esiedu, and lawyer Tadio Sori at the restaurant and the meeting they had can easily be verified and confirmed. He continues that the above development is of grave worry as proceedings for the removal of the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana is a very solemn and serious process and should not lend itself to manipulation by any person or authority. The meeting between Justice Poamang, Kulendi, and Esiedu with Tadio Sori clearly has destroyed the integrity of the process and reduces public confidence in the process so far. Both Justices Esiedu and Poamang are members of the panel set up to inquire into the petition. They have no business meeting counsel for one of the petitioners outside working hours at an unofficial place, a restaurant, and to have a discussion. So he makes the claim that Justice Poamang gave judgment in the Supreme Court in favor of one of the petitioners, Daniel Ofori, who is being represented by Tadio Sori. And in fact, the Chief Justice, as I referenced earlier, also makes this particular reference in the 10th relief that she is seeking.
So Alfred, can you project Article 1273?
Article
1273.
Article 1273
of the Constitution.
Okay. And he continues that Justice Poamang is known to be interested in becoming Chief Justice following the election of John Dramani Mahama. And then he goes on and on that Justice Yoni Kolendi, beg your pardon, is widely known to have been a close rival to Justice Gato Tukono for the position of Chief Justice when same became vacant after Justice Kwesi Enin-Yeboah, that he is known to be interested in being appointed CJ, goes on and on. And even prior to this moment, Article 127, eh?
Yes.
1273.
Yeah.
127.
Article 1273.
Yes. We'll have that on the screen in a bit.
Article 1273.
That will be projected. But even before that, yesterday, operatives of the National Intelligence Bureau stormed this gentleman's house, and we have videos of that, and there's been some concern raised about how that was carried out, and also eventually he being charged with publication of false news. Council, and I think Franklin Kujo as well is going to be joining. One of the persons who raised concern about the conduct of the NIB in this particular instance. Why is that?
So that's Franklin?
No, Franklin will join us.
Okay, so I think that...
Okay, yes.
Yes.
Let's deal with this matter distinct of...
Yes.
Because I want us to have a progressive conversation. That's what makes all of this.
So I think we've raised two issues fundamentally here. One had to do with the petition by Adenta Kumi. Yeah. And then one had to do with the ongoing matters. So we try to draw the connection, because if you look, some of the reliefs against Justice Asiedu and Poamang in the leadership suit does not relate to the meeting.
Yes.
But in the pleadings, you see some kind of reference to it. I ask you to project Article 127(3) for some obvious reason. In the sense that when a judge is performing his or her function as a judge, he's not liable for any civil or whatever proceedings. And so, to the extent that the only ground for disqualification of these judges is the fact that, according to her leadership, Justice Poamang has sat on a case involving Daniel Ofori, and for that matter, he's disqualified.
Says a justice of a superior court, respectfully, or any person exercising judicial power shall not be liable to any action or suit for any act or omission by him in the exercise of the judicial power.
Absolutely. So this one, and Justice Poamang does not empanel himself. He's empaneled by the Chief Justice to sit. And once he performed that lawful duty of sitting, it matters not who the parties are. Two, is the question of subject matter. The Daniel Ofori EcoBank matter relates more importantly to investment issues. It has nothing to do with this petition. So the nexus is problematic, and it's a dangerous terrain. Why? I think her ladyship, the Chief Justice, should be the last person to pontificate this. Why do I say so? If you recall, when the Daniel Ofori matter started at the High Court, one of the matters came before her. She had risen through the ranks and now became a Supreme Court judge. There was a Daniel Ofori matter that came before the court, and she was empaneled. When the lawyers for Daniel Ofori raised the issue that, her ladyship, you decided this matter, so the subject matter is a matter within your purview. Why do you want to sit on it now that you have become a Supreme Court judge? It's inappropriate. She said no, she will sit. So they took an objection. It was her whole colleague Supreme Court judges that said no, you can't sit on this matter, and made an order recusing her before she became Chief Justice. So I think she, with the greatest respect, should be the last person to go on this tangent because of subject matter. Two different matters. If if it was the case that the committee is going to do an investigation into the merits of Daniel Ofori and EcoBank, then my lord may have a challenge going into it. But this has nothing to do with the merit. And in the specific case of His Lordship Justice Asiedu, it's quite curious. Do you know the person who empaneled Justice Asiedu on the Vincent Assefuah and Attorney General decision? Do you know who?
She did it before.
She did it.
The same Chief Justice.
She did it.
But at the time, she had not been suspended.
Yes, she did it. Asiedu did not put himself on the committee, the panel, the 5-member panel. You empaneled him. Now, having empaneled him and you have been suspended, you said that should be grounds for his disqualification on a different committee. So it's like you set a trap for him, anticipating that maybe something will happen. I mean, you cannot. That would be self-serving. That would be a very dangerous proposition. If not, judges will now be careful when they are being empaneled. Because then tomorrow, the same person that empaneled you will now use it against you. It offends public policy to go on that line. I don't know why we are proceeding on this target. But you see, if you look at Adenta Kumi, that's the challenge I have is that why? There's nothing wrong petitioning the president. But where the petition to the president is founded on hearsay, make up stories. First of all, the video is out there. Me, I call him Prof. Tadio Sorry. You see him with Kote Jani.
The video you talk about, which I say you posted, we're going to put that on the screen. There's CCTV footage from that particular
You
restaurant.
see Professor Tadio Sorry with the businessman Kote Jani.
Who are the three working?
So these are Justice Kofi, Justice Kulendi, and Justice Asiedu.
Okay.
But prior to this, you see, you need to follow the sequence. Prior to this, there's a shorter video. 2 individuals were already in the restaurants.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's it.
Is that what you're talking about?
No, this still the justices.
Okay.
There is a shorter video.
There are 2 people seated with a yellow arrow on them. Well, let's play that. Let's just go back briefly.
No, so you can see exactly. So these 2 people are already in the restaurants.
Okay.
Kote Jani, the businessman, and the lawyer Tadio Sorry. Right?
Okay.
Then now the 3 gentlemen now walks in. So clearly, they were there before the 3 gentlemen walked in. Now the 3 gentlemen walk in, 2 passes them to go and sit down. Then my lord Kulendi then approaches Tadios. After shaking hands with Kote Jani, he now comes, hugs Tadio Sorry.
So it is His Lordship Yoni Kulendi and lawyer Tadio Sorry.
And Kote Jani.
Who hugged. Yes. Okay.
Then now he informed that, that's Justice Asiedu and Kofi there.
So that's when...
So he now walks to there, shake hands with them, and then comes back. On what basis do you say that it was a meeting for dinner? Because read the petition. If you read Adenta Kumi's petition, he specifically alleges that they went there for dinner. Is that what happened? So clearly, there is somebody who is not there. I say, okay. Somebody saw the scenario, but didn't know exactly what it is. And basically says this. So let me just go and muddy the waters by adding up. Basically making up stories to impugn the integrity of these people. And if you watch the scenario well, you will notice that contrary to the claim of, what's the name, Adenta Kumi, that they were discussing the matter. You were not there. You are like one time petitioner said, you and I were not there.
Well, he actually references that, indeed, the presence of these persons excited the curiosity of some persons in the restaurant.
But were you there?
So he didn't state in the petition that he was there.
No, but I'm saying that, so some persons, it is not you. Why would you want to take this? I don't know whether he wanted to be the man who met Jesus on the way to Golgotha. What's the name? He bear the cross at a point.
Simon of Cyrene.
Is that him?
Yeah.
I don't know why Denta Kumi wants to be there.
Yeah, so he took over when Jesus yes. Simon of Cyrene.
I don't know why. He wants to be Simon. I don't know. It's ridiculous.
But are you saying that this petition should not gain the attention of the president in any way, shape, or form?
President John Dramani Mahama has a reset agenda. Every Ghanaian should be given the opportunity if they bring a petition. But right from the word go, it is clear that this petition has no foundation. I mean, can you imagine if this guy had brought a picture or video? And first of all, my Lord Justice Puaman is not even there. My Lord Puaman is not in the video. So it's just completely just to destroy people, to muddy this impeachment proceeding. And that is why I say he has taken the burden of Simon, who had to help Christ, our Lord and personal Savior, on the way by taking up the cross. I mean, that's basically what it is. I mean, unfortunately, this is a misadventure. Complete misadventure.
I get you.
Yes, he says, in fact, after you put this out,
yes.
by the way, one of the first
yes,
put out this CCTV footage. After that, he put it on his X page. I'm talking about Alfred Kumi, that, and we're going to put exactly what he posted on his X page so as not to be caught in any paraphrasing. He says, I said it that if I have to run for my life, someone will release the video. There are more videos. Please, any state agency that does not allow the president to respond to the petition, but rather want to pick me up, that was before he was picked up yesterday in the morning, will cause more harm to our state than picking me. I petitioned the president, not the NIB or national security. Leave me alone. He says he has more videos. Because this is actually under 1 minute.
And like I pointed out, this thankfully is the CCTV camera footage from walking right into to when they went in there, sat there, and what have you. You see, maybe you have the benefit. I think he had been charged. I understand the offense of false.
For false publication, yes.
The essential ingredients of this offense. I usually don't subscribe to these offenses for obvious reasons. I'm a person that uses the media so much. So my view is that there are possibility of slip or something, on these issues. But in this matter, because of the sensitive nature of it, nothing precludes him from giving the other recordings that he claimed he has to the investigative bodies. Nothing. What I find a bit strange, again, I come back. Look, there's this decision by the Supreme Court, okay? And in this decision by the Supreme Court, let me reference it. The Republic versus High Courts. Let me see. The Republic versus, it's a very recent decision. The Republic versus...
While you round up for me.
Yes, so I'll just conclude on this. The Republic versus High Court, General Jurisdiction 8, Accra, S-Party Daniel Ofori, Ecobank Ghana, Interested Party. It was delivered 22nd January 2025. Okay?
Okay, fresh.
Very fresh decision. Panel, Lovelace Johnson, presiding. Asiedu GSC, Asiedu, Gawu, Asaridako, and Ajay Frimpong. it was not the majority. The majority included Justice Asiedu, and he ruled against Daniel Ofori.
I see. He ruled against Daniel.
He ruled
That's one of the petitioners.
Yes, one of the petitioners. So the petitioners and their lawyers, based on the reasoning by her ladyship in her reliefs, the petitioners should also be asking for Asiedu to recuse himself. I mean, what are we saying? You know, so please. And this panel that had Asiedu in it was put together by her ladyship Justice Gertrude Tokon.
I see. So, well, we saw the NIB pick him up yesterday, Lawyer Martin Pebu, and then eventually getting to know. Did you say you are at variance with that charge of publication of false news, but also concern has been raised about how this entire arrest was done. His house being stormed by these NIB operatives, picked him up, and then taken to the office there. To the extent that there has been concern raised about the modus operandi of the NIB in some of these instances. Is it one that, based on what you saw, as was captured on some of the videos that we've been playing, raises concern for you? It's picking up in the morning. And
yeah. You see, the video is one that, you know, when I looked at it, what we saw, so what you've just shown, you see the issues I had heard was about the high number of policemen that went there, the NIB. For you, it's not an issue, right?
No. Okay. Let's play the video of Alfred Ocansey.
Okay.
Not that.
So yes. I heard, I don't want to repeat those numbers so that somebody say that's true. I heard a certain huge number. But
we
I
don't
didn't
know that, and we cannot,
exactly.
We cannot
so
that was, these things.
Yes, people embellish it. You can just see there is active disinformation. People are trying to harm us with false information so that they excite our emotions. Yeah, that was a key so far. That was the greatest point that was being made, that the number was inordinately high. But when I looked at the video, I didn't see that number. So I was like, oh. Then the people making that charge, why didn't they take the video of the number? You see the number of policemen.
Apparently, the NIB people actually videoed it themselves for the record. Just to show that they are following the...
Very good. Very good. Yet in the media, the main thing so far, we are coming point by point in terms of the analysis. So far, the biggest point I had heard, the one that got to be alarmed, even some lawyers reached out to me, that people, look, there is this huge number. Then I said, but I don't see it in the video. And since then, they've not shown me the video of that high number. So once we're showing that there are issues with the information that has been given, whichever high number you've heard, so far we've not seen a video supporting it, then that one, we'll put it aside until we get further evidence, okay? Because I can't comment on something which should be verifiable, but you've not brought evidence on it. We can't do that. It's not fair to our democracy.
Right.
So if we put that aside, the next point is about the charge. You see, I look at it, and in all fairness, what I'm asking myself is that, you see, if Kumi had left the petition
just as
it is and not gone on radio, I would have supported him 150%.
Absolutely.
You see what Eduji said? You're basing your petition on hearsay. So once you've not seen it yourself, at least as a citizen, we should commend him a bit that he saw something and he decided to bring it to the attention of the president. Yes, to that extent, he can be commended. In our democracy, look, we will go very far if you see, or if you saw something and you said it. See something, say it, sort it.
National security has a team. See something, say something.
Let's use the short form. Because this, if you see something, say something, it's long. Now, if you go to the UK, they've made a shorter version. They just say, see it, okay, say it, sorted. 3 ways. See it, say it, sorted. This, if you see something, is the American edition, this rendition from the 90s. It's been long, so maybe national security should abridge it, make it very short. See it, say it, sorted. It's easier. Now, So for me, the petition by itself is okay. It's a constitutional right that he has. We need vigilant citizens. Notwithstanding that he had embellished it, right? Yes. Because, you know, sometimes in an attempt, because there was some, let's say, I'm not the technical meeting, but because at least the video shows that the persons met, but not in the sense of sitting and having a chat and blah, blah, blah. I would have supported the petition because at least it shows something, right? But where he erred, and erred, I mean, egregiously, it's been so terrible, it's for him to have gone on radio. Then he kept, you know, embellishing it. So you see, the moment he did that, then
the publication was no longer the petition.
Yes. Yes, that's the thing. Because I was like, why would this gentleman do this? So it became very clear that he was more motivated by his political ends. To be very clear, I heard him on a certain radio station. This one of the mornings. I heard him, not anybody doing hearsay. I heard him. I mean, if you know your information is not that conk, you just say, oh, I won't talk about it. I've just presented a petition. But he was there. And, you know, nowadays, somebody says, from one radio station to another, it's like he's the new kid on the block.
Simon
Osirine. Simon Osirine. Yes. So when you have you're overburdened by your cross, call him in. He will come and take it and then carry it like the way Simon Osirine helped Jesus. So for me, that's where he lost me. You know, you should have a certain judgment. You see, things like this, they call for judgment. You've seen a certain physical meeting, though not a technical meeting. You've raised it. It's okay. Why would you go on air? Yes.
I probably think he was carried away by the stations calling him for
carried away. Yes. Oh, no, let them intervene because it makes the argument better. Because I was struggling with it. I said, no. When your information is not conk, you don't go on radio. At least you took the first step. Let the president go into it, etc. But you don't do this. So if the NIB, investigating for publishing false news, that's section 208 of the Criminal Offences Act. Yes, let the law take its course. Because what can I say? This is difficult. You haven't seen an actual meeting. Right? You saw something that's short of a meeting, or you didn't even see, somebody told you. So such a thing, you don't vote. You know, as we sit here, you know the kind of things people send us every time. But once you see that this thing, it cannot be verified, you are careful. You don't put it out. It's not everything. So there was that lapse in judgment. And, I mean, in this case, it's difficult to fault the NIB. Maybe if he comes out to apologize, to beg the NIB, we can join. If he shows some remorse and wants to apologize that this, so he begs, they shouldn't continue investigations, etc. That one, oh, I'm sure having sat here with time, you can predict how I think. Because the man is remorseful. He was, I mean, so then we will see that, okay, he was trying to help our constitutional, architecture, the advancement of our democracy. We can take that, right? But in the absence of an apology showing remorse, it's not that part I can't defend.
Well, but he subsequent to this video being released, he has made the point that what this CCTV footage is just under 1 minute, and that he has more videos.
So he should bring
back his point. It's a Twitter.
Yes, he should bring. Don't forget.
Twitter thing on the page right now.
Mr. Ocansey, I think he was a parliamentary candidate of the MPP, right?
He sought to be.
He sought. Yes. So it's publicly known that he sought to be. So it means that he contested the party primaries. Yes. That's very important. So that's why I say, viewers, in our analyzing it, let's watch the political ends. It's clear that it's more of a political agenda. If you have the video, why would you allow NIB to come and arrest you? I mean, it doesn't look reasonable. Or is it? I don't want to say that is, but who would sit? No, I don't want to,
No, I mean, if these judges want to conspire, for Christ's sake, against a ladyship, they chose a market square.
Can you imagine?
They chose a restaurant.
Can you imagine?
To go and have that conspiracy. I mean, even if you have nothing, at least some respect that these people are even intelligent. You understand?
Yes.
That, for Christ's sake, these are quite intelligent people. And that, I mean, to conspire against a Chief Justice, the high office of search, they chose a restaurant to go and have that meeting and conspiracy. I mean, why do you want to be Simon of
Cyrene?
I mean, why?
Christian Mamhesi on this, unless you are done on this.
Yes. So he should look at it. He maybe consider come and apologize, and then we can support him, maybe. But that short of that, as for justifying what he did, I mean, it doesn't help our democracy.
Professor Godfrey Bokwe is going to be joining us. I know he has a quick take on this particular one. So yes, Christian Mamhesi, on the sequence of events from the petition to this video, and then the position that the petitioner has taken that he has more information. Yesterday he was picked up by the NIB. The fashion in which he was picked up also raised concern, and then the charge of publication of false news against him. And he still insists that he has more videos. What should be the next step for me?
It's becoming team for joy.
I protest. The linking him to Intim for Joy is the lowest. I beg you. I beg you. This one, I take exception to it.
For me, well, I mean, there's nothing wrong in filing the petition. I mean, one's opinion, or if he's witnessed a matter that he wants to draw the president's attention to, which he believes the president would have recourse to decide on, that's fine. And having run commentary, which, I mean, just like my senior also said, I also agree with the fact that the matters put out there, he didn't witness it. We use the word personal knowledge, and when it is not personal knowledge, then you run into, or you risk running into the realm of hearsay. Now, running that in the public, he risked himself putting out unsubstantiated matters, which he had to, if he had stuck to the petition, would have saved matters. Now, he can do himself good by proving that what he put out there was not false information. Save that point has been made. I would also veer to how the security forces charged on him. I believe sometimes they should measure the coercive force or power in running up some of these duties. The coercive powers, you see, there's everything in balance of duty that coercive power should equally meet what the officer there should be a balance. There should be a balance in the exercise of that duty, such that if the coercive power is more than that which is met to it, then it creates an imbalance, and that imbalance would reverberate in the minds of people as a Rambo-style situation, which in a democracy doesn't sound too good. That you have a lot of officers with guns, and not even the shotguns, but they are holding rifles. I mean, I'm not a security person to know the make of the rifles and all of that, but I mean, visibly rifles and all of that cladded. I mean, just to arrest a simple young man on such a crime, alleged crime, is too superfluous. So we pray that NIB, you do a good job. You're doing a good job to protect the state and to keep us in check and have security apparatus run. But at times when we go wrong, in the exercise of your constitutional and other legislative duties, we pray that you be moderate in the exercise of your duty, especially when you are using your coercive powers. Let it be balanced, such that it will not create that optic imbalance or that posture that would suggest that there is an uneven relationship in terms of that, the exercise of that coercive power. And aside that, I believe that once he's arraigned before court, he would have his opportunity to defend whether or not what the prosecution will put before him is sustained. Once he filed the petition, he would have his day to prove whether or not it's false information or not.
Well, as indicated, yes, very briefly.
So, Mr. Mam, you know, because sometimes we also sit here to learn. So, from the number you are mentioning, what number of policemen do you see?
Oh, what I am saying is...
But put on a record,
put differently, is it excessive?
He's already saying it's excessive.
No, I'm saying that put differently in terms of numbers. Would you call this excessive?
That's what he said, that it's excessive. So let me make the point quickly. My point is that don't forget the man was a party aspirant. No, sometimes when we do that, let's be careful. He's an aspirant, somebody who sought to become what? A parliamentary candidate. It goes, listen, without saying that he has supporters. There are many. So the police will be making a mistake that one or two went there and not armed. No. Security, that is their job. That's why I first said that.
You see, immediately the General Secretary of the NPP put out on social media that people should run to his house.
You see?
It created a different dynamics that you can no longer allow just two officers. Because at that point, you had basically created a scene where if you are not careful, you are seeking to obstruct the investigation. In that case,
and he has a following.
And he has following.
A parliamentary aspirant.
And he lives within the community. So assuming about the General Secretary having put that thing on Facebook, 1,000 people have rushed there. What do you think would have happened?
But my point, you know, the police, they always have this way of, these days, they have restrained themselves.
Usually, you know me, my strategy.
These days, they have restrained themselves. Invitation. That's what I'm saying.
Simple invitation.
And an invitation is construed as an arrest. So these days, they are trying to build security civilian relationship. So they have deferred to an invitation. So they can even place a call to you that we request your presence at the police headquarters. So that, and then you would say, I would want to come with my lawyer, or then you run it by your lawyer. I cannot come the designated day. And I've done it a lot of times with my client and even the officers. Can we come the next week, 20-something? They say, okay, cancel, that will be fine by us. We would be there. So such a situation. And this person is not one who would run out of the country, because again, you have every means to guard that. Once you run that invitation to him, definitely this man will yield himself. So, and once it is a politically exposed person, you would have people amassing around, like he said, but an invitation would have been a more ideal. I am not saying I am more minded, or I have a security mind superfluous or more enriched than the security persons. But I think that there should be a balance in the use of coercive force, especially the relationship we are seeking to build between security and the civilians.
Right. Now, so live here on Key Point on TV3. We are live on 3FM 92.7, also on the Voice of London radio in the heart of the city of London, and the Voice of London TV as well. We have just been told that we're being simulcast on those platforms. Also, so a number of you sending us messages from there as well. It says, I'm watching you now on the Voice of London TV. The NIB officers identified themselves with what I have read, said to the wife of the said individual, where they are taking him to.
And you know, they had put out this lie that the wife lost, she had had a miscarriage.
And even asked her to follow them.
When I saw Frank Bano,
can drive.
Dr. Frank Bano said the wife has lost.
Let me finish.
Why?
You should have just invited
Politics
to
is
say
messing up
because it's
everything,
politics.
and frontline politicians are changing the narratives. It will become very difficult for law enforcement officers to protect this nation and her citizens if this is not stopped, you say. Thank you very much. And then also, well, this one also here says that, he says, good morning. I would like to find out if, okay, I think this has been answered already about what is being done next if this matter is going to be investigated. You say yes. And it says, I want to find out if Edwin Tamaklo will advise the president to even spend time on this petition. He has answered that question already. That leads us to the next issue. On the matter of the economy, well, as we talk about the appreciation of the city and how it's the trickle-down effect, or what we call the pass-through effect in economics, is expected to be felt by all of us. The governor of the central bank indicates that the reason why they have had to stay the policy rate is to consolidate the gains of the city. Private sector thinks otherwise, that at least the policy rate should have gone down a bit so that the pass-through effect will start right now with the precision of the city, as we are seeing. And for consumers as well, because food prices are still high on the market. And the governor is minded about that. He references that at the MPC meeting throughout the week. But then again, what has to be done going forward in consolidating the gains of the city? The former vice president, former flag bearer of the NPP in the 2024 elections, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, says the NDC cannot point to even one policy for this appreciation of the city. Take a look.
Of the city that we have seen recently. I think one of the things that if you ask a simple question to the NDC to point out exactly what policy they have implemented that has resulted in the appreciation of the city, they cannot tell you one that has been implemented, not sort of talked about, but actually implemented. They cannot tell you one such policy.
That's coming up after this quick break. Money says the national security needs to start considering the arrest of those people that come to the scene of an arrest, you say. Thank you. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. Stay with us. This is Key Point. Professor Godfred Bobking is a professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School. He's joining us in the studio right now for this next conversation after this quick break. Stay with us. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. And as always, on the Voice of London Radio, in the heart of the City of London, and the Voice of London TV as well. And good morning to Mansa Musa and the team over there as well. And as always, every Saturday here on Key Point, I'm clothed by Kogra Clothing. It's the best version of you. Locate them on the Sprinters Road, 18 Junction, opposite the Allied Oil Filling Station, ground floor, same building with the Ghana Made store. You can call them on these numbers for this outfit and many others that you've seen me wear on Key Point. 0244 238 341. 0244 238 341. That is 0244 238 341. You can send them a WhatsApp on 0500 9099. 0500 9099. Choose Kogra Clothing, choose right. This is the verdict of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the former Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, and the flag bearer of the MPP in the 2024 elections, on the appreciation of the city and why he thinks the NDC cannot take credit for what is happening now. Take a look.
The appreciation of the city that we have seen recently. I think one of the things that if you ask a simple question to the NDC to point out exactly what policy they have implemented that has resulted in the appreciation of the city, they cannot tell you one that has been implemented, not sort of talked about, but actually implemented. They cannot tell you one such policy. They only pass their budget in March. They've not even issued any contracts and paid for anything.
Well, the President, John Dramani Mahama, yesterday had this response for the former Vice President. Take a look.
We have seen a response to the work that we've done, especially when it comes to the economy and hardship and all that. And somebody says, point to one policy that you have implemented to make the CD appreciate. And I said, one policy. It's not about one policy. The answer is effective leadership. With effective leadership, we can turn this economy around and create a better life for our people. And that is what I'm committed to make sure that by the time we finish these 4 years, we'll set a standard in government that whichever party or whichever people come into governance cannot reverse the gains that we have made in restoring our people's confidence in our democracy. And so we'll continue to listen to the nuggets of wisdom that you give us, because it makes us better, it makes us stronger. It helps us to do what the Ghanaian people, have given us the mandate to do.
That's President John Dramani Mahama there. The city is at 11 cities now. There's about 10 cities, 80%, almost 11 cities as well, to the dollar as of this morning when we checked. No, you have to leave us very quickly.
Yes. You see,
why do you want to take credit for something that you didn't work for?
You see, I can understand where Dr. Bawumia is coming from.
Permit me, before you do, let me acknowledge the presence and officially welcome Professor Godfred Bobkin. He's a professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School, an internationally acclaimed, also a financial analyst. Thank you, Prof, for joining us. Good morning.
Hey, and he was in the Kwafu Hall.
I'm sorry.
It's very important.
I was betting at the Kwafu.
They would take back everything.
Please, yes. I was a petcher with status.
Petting is illegal. So yes. Quickly.
I am not surprised, really, hearing Dr. Bawumia on the usual thing. When you lead a political party, as the leader of the party, into an election, and you come back and you return a verdict, where today, as we speak, in about 4 regions of this country, the MPP has no parliamentary representation. That's about 54 seats on the go. No representation. You have a situation where in about 5 regions, MPP has only 1 seats out of 43. When you have that kind of scorecard, what you do is to be sober and not immediately put on a different, cloth and begin to pontificate esoteric economic theories immediately. Sober. You are known to be an economist. Your boss, Nanado Dankwa Akufo-Addo, told us, say, see deny hata. And so he is bringing you to come and give strength to the Ghana city. What has happened? You left at the point where the city even rose to 17. Inflation at a point went to 54%. This is your scorecard. Post 1992, maybe Doc will help me. I don't remember the last time inflation went as far as 54. I think the last time I checked in my economy of Ghana, it was during the PNDC era, the drought. It went to 154 or something percent. And since then, there had been consistent work to work things out. But you see, Bawumia finds himself in a very tight corner. One, he needs to find a way to energize the base of the MPP. Two, to also position himself that of all the men in the MPP, like they say, of the West, he's the better among them. Because if not, he should permanently keep quiet and allow Atto-Forson, the governor of Bank of Ghana and others, to work this economy. Look, this economy doesn't like noise.
This
particular economy doesn't like noise. Do you know why I say so? Have you heard Atto-Forson says he had arrested the CD, the dollar and given the key to IGP? No. He just focused on doing his work. Have you seen Atto-Forson had a press conference and begin to name the members of the economic management team?
No. What is solid team?
What a solid team. Have you seen him? No. He just focused doing his work. Bawumia lives off hype. He lives off hype. Yeah. And that is his undoing. Yeah. In the 2024 election, it is Bawumia's own words that finished the campaign.
Yeah.
His own words, the things he said before, and he's not learned from it. Thankfully, my first degree was in economics. The Ghanaian economy, and if you look at the trends, it's almost cyclical.
Yes.
We go back
from the 60s.
From the 60s. It's because of the unique nature of this economy doesn't really respond to certain things. So you need to be sober when you are managing it. But look, let me respond quickly to something so that I can take leave.
Yes, but the quick structure. You see, the structure and fundamentals of our economy hasn't changed.
Exactly the point. So that's why I'm coming.
Speak. So you would. That's why the caution is to be measured in.
No, but you see, so far,
celebrating the gains that we are seeing.
No, as for the gain, we will celebrate it. And the reason is simple. If it had gotten worse, what would be our response?
That you are not performing well.
Perfect. If it had gotten worse, in fact, with all this light problem that we are having, the minority held a press conference and blamed it squarely on John Mahama.
Yes.
Why are they not blaming it on Bawumia?
8 years when they didn't
of his 8 years. In fact, as late as October 2024, Doc or Prof, you know they were supposed to shut down the various plants for maintenance.
Yeah.
But because of the election, they kept the plants on.
Yeah.
We have come to face that challenge. But you can't say because of politics, you want to leave the plants on. So we needed to bring it, shut them down for maintenance. Because if you don't maintain it too, it will create another problem, and that will be bigger.
Thank you.
In that way, they say, small shame is better than bigger shame.
Okay.
So put it down, maintain it for the sake of tomorrow. That is policy choice. That is prudent. But you see, on the substantive matter, Dr. Bawumia says that what is it that John Mohammed's government has done that is yielding this positive impact? Who paid the domestic debt, the bonds? Who paid it? Was it Bawumia?
No.
Is that not policy?
It is.
Bawumia says we are not spending, and that is why the cedi is stable. With respect, when we pay the bondholders, what were we doing? It's not spending. Bawumia's idea of spending in economics is going to buy tomatoes.
So you haven't paid contractors,
and paying contractors.
and,
No.
and so on.
Government expenditure, and Doc will tell you, it's in three folds. The statutory payment, interest and amortization, and like, you know, for capital, you know, expenditure and others. You left a painful haircut for people. One administration came for whatever, and you read Gideon Boako and the rest saying John Mahama had borrowed so much. You heard them?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
So in one breath, they are saying, but this government has also ensured, with respect, to pay people. So there's expenditure going. But what government has done, and what Ato Forson is doing now, is to ensure fiscal prudence. Fiscal prudence. That is policy choice. He could have decided that in the midst of all these challenges, let me just pull and go to Bank of Ghana. For the first time in the history, monetary policy-wise, Bank of Ghana printed over 64 billion or so into the system. In fact, at the point that they even breached the Bank of Ghana Act, that requires how much of overdraft or money you can put into the system. That's policy choice. So when Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia says that, what is it that John Mahama has done? It is either it is deliberate, or he just wants, as usual, to play politics with the issue. It is leadership.
Right.
It is who at the end. Simply curbing Bank of Ghana financing alone is giving confidence to people out there that these people who have come are not going to behave otherwise. Look, so I'll conclude on this.
Quickly.
When this administration came, we needed to meet the IMF. They needed certain policy choices to reflect in the budget. If not, we will not get the staff level agreement. It took President Mahama, the leadership of President Mahama, Ato Forson and Governor, to ensure that we met that staff level agreement. If not, we're not going to be entitled to the over $300 million. That alone would have messed up the economy. So when you say that you don't know what we have done, what level of dishonesty? It is this dishonesty that got to the 38%. And instead of waking up, 41%. Okay, then it's what?
41.
41. Oh, very well. I've amended my earlier statement.
But it's fine. It's fine. Go.
So I am saying that it is this level of dishonesty that got him the 41%. I think I'll just end it on this. Leadership is everything.
Indeed.
The rest is the effect of it.
But beyond the politics, I mean, you are looking at what the numbers say and the real factors that has contributed to where we are now. What are those?
Well, thank you very much. Good morning to our cherished viewers and my seniors on my right here. I mean, not to go into the politics of it, I mean, what we are observing, you can see leadership in here from the highest level. You can see painful choices that are manifesting in this that we are seeing. And I want to look at two main policies. Fiscal. There's a fiscal backing. If you look at what the economy has gone through in the last 3 years, the excess injection of liquidity into the economy from high expenditure. And let me put it this way. We've seen this government do within 5 months what we have been calling for the past 3.5 years. In fact, right from COVID.
Government has done within this 5-month period what you have been calling for.
in the last, since COVID.
Okay.
Since COVID, we were saying that
What
we need to be measured with our expenditure.
Okay.
We need to be cutting the wasteful spending so that we choose a certain gradual fiscal consolidation that will be less painful. Okay. We didn't do that. To make matters worse, 2022, Bank of Ghana moved in strongly with excess liquidity. That created inflationary pressures that pushed over 800,000 people into poverty. Yeah. And then you see the 2024 election, you realize that the IMF supported program, practically, we missed all the targets. I think with the exception of GDP growth, that was higher than programmed, and then international reserves. But then when it comes to the main fiscal anchor for fiscal consolidation, we miss it. We're supposed to do 0.5% of GDP on primary surplus. We did a negative of more than 3%. So you will see that in the 2025, and I agree with Mr. They've used the 2025 budget to more or less correct some of these imbalances to the extent that they had to restore the program back on track by moving from a negative primary surplus of more than 3% to a primary balance positive of 1.5% of GDP. You know what that means? What that means is that we've done this, but there's a cost, a trade-off. You see that the growth projection was slower than the outturn for 2024. So to a large extent, government is not spending as we have seen in the last couple of years. In nominal terms, we've shrunk expenditure by more than 10 billion cedis. Wow. Yeah, in nominal terms, compared to 2024. Then also the Minister of Finance, and we agree with them, the economy was overheated, we needed to cool it down. In a certain layman's sense, it's almost like putting the economy in a medically induced coma, right, just to cool it down. So the minister called it shock therapy. So the shock therapy reduced our gross financing needs for more than 60 billion cedis in 2024 to just around 44 billion. So government is not borrowing as much as we've been doing. And even the borrowing that they are doing, they are sweeping balances also from state-owned enterprises. So they are not accepting auctions on the market like before. That has caused the treasury bill rate to come down. So there's a certain direction towards that. So from the fiscal side, we have switched to what we call expenditure-based fiscal consolidation. Good news is good. In the short term, it's very good. So from the fiscal side, there's policy backing. Then see the complementarity as well, something we haven't seen in the time past in terms of coordination between the fiscal and the monetary. Okay, Addison didn't get exactly what the current governor is enjoying in terms of the coordination, fiscal and monetary. In the normal,
between him and the finance ministry.
Yes, in the normal sense, you expect that the fiscal will complement, the monetary will complement fiscal, they will complement each other. But what we've seen in the time past was that we were pursuing monetary policy as subordinate to fiscal because the fiscal indiscipline was high. Then in that case, there was no way you can deploy monetary policy effectively to achieve the desired outcome. Now, they are working together. That is being corrected. So you see sterilization. So here, spending is not optimal, but you also see from the monetary policy point of view that they are mopping up excess liquidity. We call that one sterilization. They've doubled that. Essentially, what you are doing is that the liquidity that in the system that ordinarily would chase foreign currency, you are what? Mopping it up. So then in that case, with improved supply, gold exports, cocoa, remittances, the upper hand is on the supply side. So with minimal intervention in the market, or even if you spill over, rather than accumulating it through your reserves, you spill over onto the market, it's likely to cause a strengthening of the local currency. So that is what we are seeing. So in a certain sense, there is coordination. In a certain sense, there is leadership. And I think this is not just accidental. From government point of view, that they want to stabilize the economy and all of that, that is very good. The question probably is whether this appreciation isn't too sudden and too aggressive. I will say the answer is yes. Okay, so if the strengthening is as a result of general improvement in the economy, you are likely to see a more strengthening on a gradual approach. But if you see the graph, you could see that there's an intervention. to improve the rate, and then we have to sustain. We have to then sustain that.
Okay.
So in the short term, the optics are good because there's likely to be inflation is likely to trend downwards. In fact, actually, the president was right when he said by first quarter or so of 2026, inflation will come to single digit. That is
all things being equal.
Yes. That is largely consistent with projections. Okay,
I see. But what's the downside of this sudden, and how do you put it, the sudden and aggressive appreciation of the cedi? I mean, what are the risks, if there are any, based on your own analysis?
Sustainability is a big issue.
I was just going to ask that, how sustainable would this be?
Yes, and that is why the market is concerned. That if you see this aggressive strengthening, the question is, can we sustain it? Given that it's the same cedi we are talking about, it's not like a new currency. Yeah. We know our cedi and all of that, the ups and downs and all of that. People are genuinely concerned. And the question also is, to what end? How do I plan going forward and all of that? But I think that...
when it's sustained, it's great certainty.
Yeah, we'll face considerable challenges in terms of sustaining it because the government cannot operate the same 2025 budget in 2026 and 2027. You cannot continue to subdue expenditure because you have to begin to roll out your policy. And as you launch those policies, policy launch is not the same as achievement. You now have to back it with cash flow, spending, and all of that. And I think as government begins to spend optimally and the whole economy triggers in, then we'll see actually the forces of demand and supply now determining where it should be and all of that. But of course, you can see across the continent the dynamics and all of that. But look at it this way also. I was expecting that the Monetary Policy Committee will cut the policy rate in line with what we are seeing. It looks to me that, yes, they are adopting a more cautionary approach that let's be very careful. It's better we watch the data a little bit before we cut the rate. But look at that in the market, all the variables do not align. That should tell you that there's more work that we have to do in order to sustain this going forward. You see that the policy rate is 28%. Inflation is around 21.2% or so. If you see the gap, it's quite wide. Whilst the treasury bill rate has come down to 15, 16, thereabout, you see policy rate still very high. Yes, of course, the Ghana reference rate, which is a guide for lending, has come down, but the fall is not that significant. You know why? Because the policy rate is still jacked up there, and then the interbank rate is also that high. So in terms of the Ghana reference rate coming down, almost 60% of the weight is assigned to policy rate and then interbank rate. So we expect that there will be this improvement, there will be broadening, so that the policy rate will come down as we see inflation also coming down and then interest rate coming down. But ultimately also we want to look at the structure of the economy we want to build.
It's precisely. Because the structure hasn't changed as we have it.
The structure hasn't changed.
And what you referenced, the pass-through effect is yet to be felt. Because
and in economics, the pass-through effect is not contemporaneous.
Precisely.
Okay, there's a lag effect and all of that. And don't also expect that if the cedi has strengthened by, let's say, 24%, you expect that prices out there will go down by that same percentage.
That is the expectation of the ordinary Ghanaian.
You can't use the exchange rate just to change all of that dynamics in the market. But we should be mindful about the kind of economy we want to build, so that the positioning or the direction of the exchange rate must align. Okay, so if we are oriented more towards import economy, then you can say, okay, it's time to celebrate this and all of that. But of course, to the extent also that a lot of input are also imported. But at the end of the day, if we are talking about structural transformation, productivity transformation, and all of that, I think we need to be very careful how we view this aggressive strengthening of the currency and whether it can be supported. Large swings, whether positive or negative, is not good for the market. Stability, predictability is what is important. And my position will be that, yes, and again, it's not politics, but part of the strengthening of the currency we are seeing now was also inherited from the previous administration. If you look at the aggressive nature with which the previous administration built reserves, okay, was quite good. Okay. That has allowed some kind of degree of freedom for this government now to begin to do, for the market to witness the inflows that we are seeing from the supply side. And let me tell you that, that if the previous governor wanted to push down the exchange rate or cost strengthening with the reserves they had that leverage. Okay. In fact, in the run-up to the election, some of us feared that the central bank would intervene in the market and drag the rate down more for political expediency because they had the reserves. Okay. They had exceeded the IMF target and all of that. And I think that there was good leadership in how they managed the transition. They preserved those reserves, handed them over to the incoming administration, and they're also building on that. So from that point, I see that, yes, ultimately it's Ghana that has won. Yeah, and all of that. Of course, we don't have a formula in sharing credit and the rest of them, but I think that we can recognize that continuity and all of that going forward. But I think that I'm sure the president is seeing what is going on and all of that. The issue is managing the delicate balance, okay, so that at a certain stability band, it allows people to what? To plan and predict. If the city strengthens beyond a certain point, it may also suggest a time to buy, right? And people would accumulate FX and the rest of it, and then you can see the reversal and all of that. But the other thing to also recognize is that with what people don't want to say it and all that, with what Bawumia started in terms of gold for oil, Bank of Ghana, gold for reserves and all of that has introduced a new dynamics in how we manage our foreign exchange and all of that. And I think we need to study that part carefully. And more importantly, as we try to deal with illegal mining, irresponsible mining, whether we can sustain that flow in terms of gold production. Because we must be mindful.
It's helping with the FX.
Yes, it's helping with the FX, but we should be mindful that we do not build a growth model that destroys the environment substantially. That's true. Okay, we should be moving away from environmentally destructive growth model and all of that. For instance, probably the Gold Board, Bank of Ghana should be telling us the companies from which they are sourcing this gold, are they doing responsible mining? Where are their mining concessions located? And all that, so that we don't celebrate this short-term gain at much cost later to our environment and water bodies. And so it's all about, so if you are talking about managing the economy, you are not just looking at one side. And remember that if we do all of this and the currency strengthens, there are so many other variables that we need to work. So that we consolidate that. But for now, I would say that, yes, from what they started from 2025, it's working. But from 2026, towards the end of 2026, 2027, government will have to spend optimally. You have to be paying contractors. You have to be doing your own big-ticket transactions in the market. Bear in mind, we are talking about $75 or $76 billion economy. A $20 million request in the market can change the price dynamics. Just $20 million. So in terms of XX, it's not that deep. Okay, so if Bank of Ghana intervenes in the market, minimally, say $60 million on daily basis or whatever, is significant enough because there's subdued demand now, but the economy will pick up. Once you spend, there's liquidity in the system because there are limited options for alternative investment, apart from buying treasury in Ghana, the bond market is closed. Okay, so if you have excess CDs right now, what would you be looking to do?
We've seen the stock market grow in a very appreciable way, 30% over the last at least 5 months, and that tells you now that the investors are diversifying their options in terms of where to invest. That's a good indicator, is it not? Yeah. At least based on what we saw this week.
So that is good. But if you check the data in the time past, okay, you can see that this is not an outlier in terms of how the stock market operates. And it's also about the risk profile of investors, where they would want to put their money and all of that. We are hoping that with this, once we're able to sustain this, we open the bond market, there are alternatives, and then also the capital market as well. And you can see that there's a price we are paying to make sure that we are on track with the IMF-supported program, okay, which also would allow us to consolidate this confidence beyond just the domestic market so that we open we're also able to have access to the international capital market. But for now, the priority is to reopen the bond market. That will be good for options. But I think going forward, if you see what is happening, I mean, this government has a unique position in terms of structured transactions in financing infrastructure. Okay, so there's excess liquidity. Bank of Ghana is just mopping that up. I mean, if you see in the last couple of years, all that Bank of Ghana does is mopping up excess liquidity. You actually need the liquidity also in the market out there to finance growth, infrastructure, and the rest of. So I think we should take advantage in terms of some kind of infrastructure bonds that allows the government to tap into patient capital for critical infrastructure rather than trying to use the limited budget. Because from the budget point of view, you can't do much. To operate a 24-hour economy, look, almost 45% of economic activity is movement. Movement of capital, goods, persons, and the rest of them. We actually don't have routes. So I'm looking forward to the government opening up the capital. Okay, as we sit here right now, you just can't say I'm going to Kumasi and come back. You just can't say I'm going to Volta region and come back and all of that. We need to open it up. We need to do highway, express road, connecting the major cities and all of that. But we should not load all of that on the public sector balance sheet because they don't have that. But I think we should look at public-private partnership that allows us to leverage that capital in delivering infrastructure. Once you begin to do that, then you are saying that you are laying the foundation for economic transformation. Either you look at it from the perspective of structural transformation, where there's a movement from low productivity to high productivity end of the market, or from productivity transformation and all of that. I think that is the point that we should be looking forward to in terms of our economic journey. But I think it's a good start, and I think we need to build on that. And I'm looking forward to see the media review, because from the revenue side, I suspect that we may not be doing quite well, like we would have seen, because the appreciation also has its own side effect here and there and all that. So it's about managing the delicate balance. I perceived from the posture of the Bank of Ghana, especially with respect to staying the monetary policy rate, they are adopting a more cautious approach.
Yes, because you hear the governor talk about a comprehensive review of monetary policy framework to essentially contain any inflation outlook threats. That's what has fed into staying the policy rate as we have it now. That's a cautious and progressive path to take from where you say?
I think so. I think so, even though I was expecting from a more optimal point of view that the policy rate should come down to consolidate the song, right, that we are all singing, that there's improvement and all of that. Once you stay it, of course, that's a more, central banks all over the world are a bit more conservative, right, than the rest of them. But I think that it's early days. We still have mileage ahead, so we can be pursuing that. But more importantly, to engineer job-rich growth, we should not look at it purely from the perspective of exchange rates. Okay.
Let's repeat that. To engineer
job-rich growth, we should not look at it purely from the perspective of exchange rate dynamics. I think we should look at a whole factors, right, and how all of this builds the competitiveness of your private sector here, because that is where job creation will come from. If this lends its way more to imports, and the data tells us, actually, and I've shared it here before, that from November 2023, inflation on locally produced items was higher than imported inflation. You'll be much better off actually importing, okay, and paying all the duties at the port than actually producing from here. When that signal is fed in the market, it's not good news for entrepreneurs. Okay, and once you are not producing, you are not creating jobs. If all that you are importing, then you are rather exporting jobs to those countries where you are importing from, and all of that. So I believe that because the economy has gone through a lot, and we are trying to stabilize, it may be a bit of too much of asking to put all of this on the table. It's still going to be a gradual process and all of that. But this stability, of course, others will even tell you the exchange rate, what we are seeing is not stability. This is some kind of disruption, right? You know that I think it's important that we have stability that allows markets. It's not good enough for the Ministry of Finance and Bank of Ghana to know where the economy is going. It's also important that the markets and all of us are also carried along, and they can all plan for the foreseeable future, because monetary policy management is also about anchoring expectation of the people in a certain direction and all of that. So the concern now is to what end? How do I plan? This is second quarter. I've seen this disruption. Do I revise my budget? What will be the outlook, especially for people who want to take medium to long-term positions in the market? I want to invest for the next 5 years, 10 years. What is going to be the outlook for me? How do I plan? And all of that. And that is why a dominant school of thought in economics will prefer stability, right? And we say that macroeconomic stability is a prerequisite for economic transformation. You need to maintain stability for long. So if we're able to maintain stability for long, that is where you see a faster trickle-down effect of prices coming down, because the market thinks that this is sustainable, because the market thinks that this is situated within structural transformation, real sector improvement, agriculture, manufacturing, and the rest of them. But when there's doubt, there are doubts in people's mind, then you want to be very careful how you celebrate that. Otherwise, so that is where we are. And given also, Alfred, that we are ending the IMF-supported program practically in the first quarter of 2026, let's say end year data to December 2025, the question is, how do we maintain fiscal discipline and this coordination post-IMF program? And if you check the data, anytime we are under IMF-supported program, we are able to have macroeconomic stability. But when we exit, maximum 2 years or so, you realize that we are making the reversals, and especially as 2028 approaches and the elections, when the election fever is at optimal, fiscal discipline, then you realize that the same Minister of Finance who is being celebrated by his colleagues now, when the election is closer, and people are asking spend, and you say, hey, fiscal discipline, they will ask you, choose. Choose between fiscal discipline and votes.
And votes. That's a reality we're faced with. And it's rightly so. And then just 1 minute to learn much people on this, because for you as a consumer, it is a reflection of it in your pocket, essentially. The pass-through effect you're waiting for, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's what I'm waiting for. How, with the appreciation of the CD, prices would come down. So at least we've seen the transport reductions by 15%. Beginning other areas, it's been 10%. Some consumer goods, right, have all come down. So we expect more reductions, because at the end of the day, what counts is the price of a ball of kinky. So at the size. The size also matters, yes. So the ball of kinky must come down from 7 CDs, 5 CDs
so
to 3 CDs. So
they don't reduce the price and shrink the size.
Thank you, thank you. So that is what counts for us. Because you see, Mr. Ocansey, I'm seeing, though that's not how much we can exchange for, but I see that the close of trading yesterday, the Bloomberg News, they have it that the CD was going for 10 CDs, 50 pesos. So we want to see, yes, we want to see more. To see more. Please, you can check it out on Ghana Way.
Yes, he wants to see more. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And Martin Pebo is private legal practitioner. And then also you get him constantly here on Key Point. And Christian Mamhesi is also a private legal practitioner. I thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming. Professor Godfrey Bobking is a professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School, internationally celebrated financial analyst. A number of you sending us messages acknowledging his uninterrupted presentation of the state of affairs and analysis of the state of the CD now. And I do appreciate you coming through. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on show. I appreciate this.
Professor Godfrey Bobking, thank you very much. You can find the full presentation. We'll cut it and put it on TV3 on Facebook and also on YouTube. So those of you who want a playback of it, you can get it there as well. Thank you so much to the rest of the team, and have a great weekend. My name is Alfred Ocansey. Enjoy the rest of our programs.